Chapter 2967. P.S. Update completed. I'm exhausted but very satisfied. It would be even better if I could come again with monthly passes. After a quarter of an hour, an elder in vermilion came out of the main hall and stood in the middle of the crowd. He raised his voice and said, "Same rules. Those on duty in the inner mausoleum, stand on the east side. Those on duty in the outer mausoleum, stand on the west side." His figure was tall and sturdy, and he stood in the crowd like an iron tower. His voice was loud and clear, and it resounded throughout the entire martial arts field. The crowd quietened down and quickly split into two rows. Chu Li consciously stood on the east side. There were 3 others with him. Chu Li glanced at the 3 of them without saying a word. Judging from their expressions, they did not want to talk to him. The elder in vermilion glanced at the crowd. His gaze was like lightning. After his glance, everyone kept quiet out of fear and did not make a sound. Chu Li's omniscient mirror had lost its effect, and he could not see his appearance. From the elder's gaze and spirit, he estimated that his cultivation level should be about 200 years. The aura of such a master was naturally different and could suppress everyone. Those on duty in the outer mausoleum, do what you need to do. Those on duty in the inner mausoleum, follow me. The elder in vermilion waved his hand and walked towards the main hall. Chu Li and the other 3 followed behind him, and soon arrived in front of a rockery. This rockery was unique, simple, and unadorned. The elder in vermilion pressed on the rockery and a deep cave entrance appeared with a rumble. Gusts of cold wind blew out. The elder in vermilion led the 3 down without hesitation. They slowly walked down more than 100 steps and stepped onto a wide avenue. The avenue was wide and clean, without a speck of dust. Of course, since they were deep underground, no dust would fall. The avenue could accommodate 5 horse carriages traveling side by side. The green bricks on the ground were shiny and the surroundings were quiet. Even their footsteps could not be heard. As soon as Chu Li stepped onto the green brick ground, he felt an invisible pressure on his face. His scalp went numb and alarm bells kept ringing in his mind, as if reminding him of the danger in his surroundings and telling him to escape immediately. He suppressed the urge to escape and followed the elder in vermilion. He looked straight ahead and looked left and right from the corner of his eyes. The walls on both sides and the ceiling were carved with spirit beast drawings. He saw spirit cranes and spirit tigers on them. They were 60 to 70% similar. It was not easy. Putting everything else aside, just these spirit beast diagrams alone were already rare treasures in the outside world. Most of the secret manuals of the first-rate martial arts sects in the Great Ji dynasty were derived from spirit beasts, but unfortunately, there were no illustrations of spirit beasts. They treated spirit beasts as legends for less than 1,000 years, as no one had actually seen them. The illustrations were getting more and more outrageous, treating wild beasts as spirit beasts. They felt that spirit beasts should look similar to wild beasts, but they did not know that spirit beasts and wild beasts were not the same species at all. Therefore, the paintings of spiritual beasts today were far from the original appearance of the spiritual beast. Although his omniscient mirror could not see his appearance, his mind was still quick-witted. He could imprint the information in his mind with just one sweep. At the same time, he was also observing the traces of the formations around him. The formations here were truly brilliant. Up until now, he had not been able to see through any of the formations, let alone find their flaws. However, he knew that this was not just one array. It was the combination of several arrays. That was why it was so powerful. That oppressive pressure came from the heavenly deity Golden Body. It really lived up to its reputation. It seemed like he had underestimated the heavenly deity expert. He followed the old man and slowly walked in. After walking for about a mile, they arrived in front of a palace gate. It turned out to be a pair of bronze doors, and an eerie murderous aura gushed out. These 2 bronze doors also had an extraordinary origin. If he was not wrong, they were similar to the battle flags on the battlefield, and could suppress the inner energy of martial arts masters. When his inner energy reached the bronze doors, it was instantly reduced to less than a tenth. He smiled bitterly in his heart. After experiencing these layers of suppression, even the most powerful masters would become soft prawns when they entered. The combat strength they could exert was limited. It was no wonder that no one had succeeded in the imperial mausoleum for thousands of years. Stepping through the bronze doors, they were faced with a wide square. At a glance, they would have to ride a horse to walk from the east to the west. It was the same size as the imperial house in the Great G dynasty's Fairies' capital. In fact, it was slightly larger than the imperial house. The old man in red led the four of them for more than 200 steps and arrived at the bottom of the stairs in front of the basilica. On the stairs of the basilica stood an old man in black with a horsetail whisk in his hand. He was not tall and was fair and plump. He looked kind, just like the scribes of the imperial house in the Fairies' capital. The old man in black shook his horsetail whisk lightly and looked at Chu Li and the others lazily. "Elder Zhao, these four young fellows are on duty today." The old man in red fist saluted. Chu Li's omniscient mirror had failed. He could not see the old man in black clearly. Based on his aura alone, he was far stronger than the old man in red. He was an amazing master. The old man's fair and plump face revealed a hint of a smile. "Good, very good. Then the four of them follow me." "Thank you, Elder Zhao. Young Yang, I'll take my leave first." The old man in red smiled. The old man in black waved his hand. "Young Yang, you go." The old man in red fist saluted respectfully and slowly retreated down the stairs. He then turned around and quickly walked out of the bronze doors and disappeared. The old man in black glanced at Chu Li and the others and extended his fair and plump hand. "Give me your waist tags." Chu Li took out his waist tag and handed it to the old man along with the other three. The old man in black looked at the waist tags one by one and carefully sized them up. Then, he placed his hand on their wrists to check their cultivation level. Chu Li secretly sighed in relief. Fortunately, he was well prepared. Not only did he change into Lu Shuzhou's appearance and hold his waist tag, but he also channeled Lu Shuzhou's heart technique, so he could not see any flaws. The old man in black looked at Chu Li, making him secretly nervous. However, he did not show it on his face. He fist saluted and asked, "Elder Zhao, what's wrong?" It was not Lu Shuzhou's first time on duty in the inner mausoleum. He was obviously an old man and should be familiar with the old man in black, which was why he dared to do this. Since he did not have the omniscient mirror, he could not see through the old man's mind. He could only speculate from his expression that there should be no problem, so he asked confidently. Usually, when he used the omniscient mirror, he would look at people's expressions and read their minds at the same time. He would often compare the two, and this way, he would gradually understand people's expressions more clearly. Coupled with his superhuman memory, he had almost completely grasped the meaning of the subtle expressions. Therefore, even without the omniscient mirror to peer into their hearts, he could vaguely guess their thoughts from their subtle expressions. The old man in black smiled. "Young Lu, you're a little different today." Chu Li smiled. "Maybe it's because I didn't drink last night, I don't dare to drink anymore." "Oh? It's rare that you don't drink." The old man in black nodded in realization. "No wonder you're more energetic." "Good, good." Chu Li was certain that he had done this flawlessly. No one else would have thought that someone else could do this. Lu Shuzhou was the one who had done it from the inside out. The old man in black let go of his wrist and flicked his horsetail whisk. He smiled. "All right then, it's rare that you're so energetic. You'll guard Chongwen Hall today." Chu Li immediately looked bitter. Elder Zhao through Lu Shuzhou. He already knew that Chongwen Hall was the most important place. It was where the golden body of the previous emperor was located. The presence of the golden body here was akin to having an audience in Chongwen Hall when he was alive. The closer the era, the more powerful the golden body became. The golden body in Chongwon Hall was the most powerful. Standing outside Chongwon Hall was a form of torture. It was the most painful. All right, it's settled then. The old man in black smiled. It's your turn now. You can just switch over next time. Chu Li sighed helplessly. Chapter 2968. They were at the front hall, where the chancellors were supposed to rest. They could rest here before the morning assembly and rest after the assembly. After all, morning assembly was a strenuous affair. It would be too much to walk out of the imperial house after standing for so long. Young Lu, come with me. The elder in black chuckled and flicked his horsetail whisk. The three of you wait here. I'll send you there later. Yes, Elder Zhao. The three of them closed-fist saluted and nodded respectfully. The elder's plump body descended the steps. Chu Li followed behind him and walked around the hall. After walking for about 200 meters, they arrived at a hall at the back. A plaque hung above the hall. The words Chongwon Hall glowed in gold. Chu Li looked up and was stunned. Without the omniscient mirror, he was not as sensitive to his surroundings. Only now did he realize that the top of his head was different after entering the imperial house. There were no longer murals or smooth stones above his head. Instead, there were luminous pearls embedded in the stone slabs. These luminous pearls were not counted individually but in clusters, forming the shape of the night sky. A cluster or several clusters of luminous pearls formed a constellation. There was also a cluster of luminous pearls that formed a bright moon, emitting a gentle glow. The Forbidden Palace was also inlaid with luminous pearls, so there was no need for torches. One could see everything clearly. Although it couldn't be compared to daytime, it gave off the feeling of being brightly lit. There wasn't the slightest bit of eerie feeling, and one would forget that they were underground. Chu Li was speechless. He did not know how many luminous pearls were embedded above his head. If he had the omniscient mirror, he would be able to estimate most of them in one glance. Now, he had to look at them one by one. It took him a while to count them all. The luxury of the imperial house was on full display. Young Lu, why are you spacing out? Come here. The elder in black walked in front and turned to look at him. Chu Li smiled. Elder Zhao, do I really have to come to Chongwon Hall? Yum? Boom. Death? Lu Xian si fi bone ratamine to judge mo sang? Shoo 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 shoo? Call? Shoo shoo shoo. Chu Li sighed in relief and closed-fist saluted. Thank you, Elder Zhao. The black-robed old man said, It's not easy outside the hall either. You have to hold on. For the outer mausoleum protectors, the inner mausoleum rotation was a tough job. It would be fine if they could persevere, but if they could not, their martial arts would be completely destroyed and they would eventually become useless. Therefore, every rotation was dangerous and related to their fate. He had no choice but to ask Chu Li to take turns guarding Chongwon Hall. After checking the cultivation levels of the four of them, Chu Li's was the strongest, so he could only be chosen. Chu Li sighed. I'll try my best. If you can hold on, this old man will give you some benefits. The black-clothed old man chuckled. Chu Li immediately perked up. What benefits did Sir Zhao give me? I'll give you 2 jars of wine. The black-robed elder chuckled. I know that you're addicted to alcohol. This is a gift from the imperial house to the inner mausoleum. Outsiders can't drink it. Thank you, Elder Zhao. Chu Li revealed a drooling expression as he cupped his fists and thanked him sincerely. The black-robed old man smiled and said, Stand guard here. Don't go in. Yes. Chu Li nodded solemnly. He knew that there were masters in the house. Chongwon Hall's security was the tightest. Not only the outer perimeter, but the interior of the hall was also densely packed with masters. He could not force his way in. He did not have the omniscient mirror, so he could not hear or see clearly. His hands and feet were tied, and he did not know what masters were in the hall or what the indestructible golden body looked like. However, waves of mountainous and ocean-like aura surged over and kept pressing on him. He felt like he was in a raging wave or carrying a huge mountain. It was heavy and difficult. His body seemed to be creaking as his bones were about to be crushed and his flesh was about to be crushed. He activated Mahavairokkana's immobility scripture. The giant Buddha's halo in the void of his mind rotated behind his head. The snow-white halo flickered continuously. He felt refreshed and relaxed. He no longer felt dizzy, but it was still uncomfortable. He carefully observed his body and sensed the aura. Was it an illusion or was it real? Did it directly affect his spirit, or was it an intangible aura like the heavenly demonic power? He used the omniscient mirror to observe the situation inside his body and realized that it was not only affecting his spirit as he had imagined, but it was a real aura. It was an intangible existence that was somewhat similar to the heavenly demonic energy in Fu Qingya's body. After this aura invaded his body, he felt like he was being pressed. He felt heavy and powerful, which affected his spirit at the same time. Those with a weaker cultivation level would soon be overwhelmed. Their spirit and body would collapse at the same time, so their martial arts would be greatly weakened. He shook his head and sighed. It seemed that the attack he saw from the Emperor was not the Emperor's full strength. It was just the tip of the iceberg. He still had a long way to go if he wanted to escape from the Emperor. Other things aside, this aura alone was enough to make him feel helpless. Even with Mahavairokkana's immobility scripture, he could not get close to Chongwon Hall. He could only stand far away. Moreover, his body was in excruciating pain. He had to circulate his inner energy desperately to withstand it. He did not know how long he could last. His inner energy had been weakened to less than a tenth here, so his power was greatly reduced. It was very difficult for him to resist the invasion of this invisible aura. He kept retreating and probably could not last for more than 2 hours. Mahavairokkana's immobility scripture resisted the aura's invasion on his spirit, but it could not do anything about its invasion on his body. The heavenly demonic power and many other martial arts were suppressed and could not withstand a single blow from it. He had an idea and activated the heavenly demonic spirit devouring technique. If he could devour this aura, the heavenly demonic orb would be greatly nourished and might even improve. He activated the heavenly demonic spirit devouring technique, but unfortunately, it was not effective. The heavenly demonic spirit devouring technique could not devour this aura. This aura was strange. It was as soft as spring water and as thin as a veil, yet it was unpredictable. The heavenly demonic spirit devouring technique could not capture its existence. Chu Li's mind raced as he searched for other ways to restrain it. If this went on, he would soon be defeated. Then, his martial arts would truly be greatly weakened. Even the Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture would not be able to recover. Suddenly, the Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture moved. The unpredictable aura that had entered his body became docile in front of the Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture and was easily converted into his inner energy. It flowed along the heart technique of the cloud slashing power and finally turned into the inner energy of the cloud slashing power. This inner force was not suppressed by the bronze gate and the tactical formation. It gurgled and moved like a pearl. It was not a big deal in the outside world. It was just a little purer, but it was really not vigorous. But here, its power was amazing. He suddenly had a strong impulse to rush into the hall to see what the golden body looked like. The Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture circulated faster and faster, and the conversion of this aura became smoother and smoother. His cloud-slashing power's inner energy kept increasing. Chu Li's confidence soared. It seemed like he could stand his ground and hold on for a day. After he calmed down, he stood where he was and thought about how he could enter the inner part of Chongwon Hall and see the immortal golden body. He could not even see the golden body, let alone obtain the enlightened master's energy. The first step to obtain the enlightened master's energy was to enter the hall. Chapter 2969. At noon, the elder in black leisurely walked over with a lunchbox and handed it to him. Here, take it. Eat well. Chuli thanked him and took the lunchbox. Where are the protectors inside? They don't eat lunch. They eat together at night. The elder in black smiled. Chuli was surprised. They don't eat lunch? They spend most of their time cultivating and don't have the mood for lunch. It's fine to go hungry. The elder in black smiled. How is it? Can you hold on? I see that you're very relaxed. How rare. Chu Li's performance was beyond his expectations. He thought that it would be difficult for him to hold on until noon, but now it seemed easy and effortless. Chu Li smiled and nodded. I'm enlightened under the heavy pressure and my martial arts improved. The inner mausoleum is really a good place. If it was the outer mausoleum, I don't know how long it would take for me to improve like this. Thank you, Elder Zhao. The elder in black, Zhao Xian, waved his plump white hand and chuckled. It all depends on one's comprehension and luck. Don't thank me. Look at you, it's easy to hold on. Chu Li nodded. I feel very relaxed now. By the way, Elder Zhao, can I go in and take a look? Oh, that won't do. Zhao Xian shook his head. You're an outer mausoleum protector. You can't enter the hall. This is a dead rule. No one can break it. Only inner mausoleum protectors. Chu Li asked. Only inner mausoleum protectors. Zhao Xian said. Besides, your cultivation level isn't high enough. Entering the hall will only harm you. It's a different world from the outside. It's 10 times more powerful. You can relax now, but you can't go in. Chu Li shook his head. I really want to go in and take a look. If I can't see the enlightened master's golden body, my life will be boring. Then there's only one way. Zhao Xian grinned. Enter the inner mausoleum and become an inner mausoleum protector. Chu Li asked, How can I join the inner mausoleum? You really want to enter the inner mausoleum? Zhao Xian was surprised. You have to know that the inner mausoleum isn't the same as the outer mausoleum. You have to endure this pressure all day. Enduring 3 days in one go is the first step to entering the inner mausoleum. No problem. I can endure 3 days, Chu Li said. Zhao Xian chuckled and said, I know you never wanted to be an imperial mausoleum guard. You still yearn for the glory of fairy's capital. Chu Li sighed and said helplessly, I wasn't satisfied before, and being a protector was tiring. Now that my martial arts has improved, it's different. Since I can't return to the fairy's capital, I'll just cultivate my martial arts well. Who knows, I might become an enlightened master. Haha, good. This is a good idea. Zhao Xian nodded in satisfaction. Alright, since you want to become an inner mausoleum protector, you'll have to pass the first test first. From today onwards, you'll stay in the inner mausoleum for 3 days and 3 nights. No problem. Chu Li said, I can become an inner mausoleum protector just like that? That depends on everyone's opinion. Zhao Xian said, as long as 10 inner mausoleum protectors agree, you can enter. Does Elder Zhao agree? Of course, I have no problem. Zhao Xian smiled. There hasn't been a newcomer in the inner mausoleum for a long time. It's rare that someone dares to come in. Chu Li Fist saluted with a grateful expression. Let's eat. Zhao Xian smiled. The inner mausoleum protectors are above all the other protectors. They're even better than ordinary imperial house protectors. Moreover, they can enter fairy's capital. You can't tell anyone about this, or else you'll be executed. Chu Li looked at him in surprise. Zhao Xian said, there are 3 levels of imperial house protectors. The innermost level is the inner mausoleum protectors. Every 2 years, a new batch of inner mausoleum protectors will be replaced. The inner mausoleum protectors will take turns to go to the imperial house. Chu Li was surprised. Aren't they supposed to stay in the inner mausoleum for the rest of their lives? Zhao Xian said, The Imperial House and the Inner Mausoleum have always been one. One lives and one dies, one yin and one yang. The Inner Mausoleum protectors often travel between the Inner Mausoleum and the Imperial House. If they're tired of the Inner Mausoleum, they go to the Imperial House. If they're tired of the Imperial House, they return to the Inner Mausoleum. Then all the more reason for me to enter the Inner Mausoleum. The Inner Mausoleum isn't that easy to enter. If your cultivation level isn't high enough, we don't want you. I believe I can enter the Inner Mausoleum. Then I'll wait and see. He flicked his horsetail whisk and fluttered away. Chu opened the lunchbox. There were 4 dishes and 2 soups inside. They looked, smelled, and looked delicious. He tasted a few mouthfuls. It was better than the best restaurant in adjacent town. He was multitasking. The Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture and Mahavairokkana's Immobility Scripture were constantly circulating. Mahavairokkana's Immobility Scripture was slowly improving under this heavy pressure. He had a vague understanding. If Mahavairokkana's Immobility Scripture was profound enough, he might be able to counteract the surrounding pressure and recover his divine power. Therefore, he wanted to enter the inner palace. The stronger the pressure, the greater the chance of improving Mahavairokkana's Immobility Scripture. If he could use his divine power, he would have a greater chance. For the next 3 days and 3 nights, he kept watch outside Chongwon Hall. Other than eating, drinking, and defecating, he did not leave. Under such circumstances, he could not sleep. He had to constantly circulate his energy to resist the pressure. The morning of the 4th day arrived. He could not see the outside, but through the changes in his blood, he knew the time. It was early in the morning. Zhao Xian chuckled and waved. "Come, young Lu, follow me." Chu Li Fist saluted. Although his face was a little pale, he was still full of energy. Zhao Xian was full of smiles, seemingly very satisfied with Chu Li. He led him for about 5 miles and arrived at a basilica. Chu Li glanced at the basilica. It was the meeting room of the Imperial House, where the scribes in the palace discussed matters. Zhao Xian pushed the door open. A group of people was already sitting inside. Chu Li glanced at them. There were 32 elders. The armchairs were arranged in layers, leaving only an empty space in the middle. Zhao Xian Fist saluted and smiled. "Everyone, this is young Lu who wants to join our inner mausoleum." The 32 elders' eyes were like lightning, and the aura around them seemed solid. Although it was not as strong as the enlightened master's golden body, it was enough to subdue ordinary people without a fight. Under the 32 pairs of eyes that were like lightning, Chu Li Fist saluted calmly. "Lu Shuzhou greets my seniors." "Lu Shuzhou, why do you want to join the inner mausoleum?" "I want to comprehend the enlightened master's path, and I want to return to Fairy's capital." Chu Li Fist saluted and answered, openly meeting a pair of eyes that were like lightning. It was a skinny elder. The elder was as thin as a tree, but his spirit was full of vigor. He was full of energy and did not look lethargic at all. "Haha, you want to return to Fairy's capital?" The skinny elder nodded. "How dare you?" Chu Li smiled. "I can't bear to part with the enlightened master's path and the prosperous world, so I want to join the inner mausoleum. This is my true intention. I see that your cultivation level is ordinary. How did you last for 3 days and 3 nights? The skinny elder asked. Chu Li said, "I had a fortuitous encounter and inherited the Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture." Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture? Everyone frowned. They were all devoted to martial arts and were unusually knowledgeable about it. They knew the foundation from the name. The Reincarnation Temple's Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture? Someone asked. Chu Li nodded slowly. Everyone fell silent and began to discuss. Among them was a middle-aged man who was rough and heroic. He laughed. The Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture is the Reincarnation Temple's cornerstone martial art. How did you obtain it? Chu Li said, I once saved a monk. The monk imparted me the Earth Matrix and reincarnation scripture before he died. Oh, then he didn't let you return to the reincarnation temple? The middle-aged man smiled. Chu Li shook his head. Chapter 2971. Chu Li smiled. Can I enter the inner mausoleum now? The skinny elder smiled. Xiao Hu, do you think he can do it? The Earth Matrix and reincarnation scripture is indeed powerful. The middle-aged man said, All right, I agree to let him in. The skinny elder turned his head and looked around. Let me experience the young man's Earth Matrix and reincarnation scripture. An elder landed in front of Chu Li. Elder Qian, what are you doing? The skinny elder smiled. The young man's Earth Matrix and reincarnation scripture is mysterious. I want to experience it. Elder Qian smiled. He had a dignified appearance, a burly figure, and a righteous expression. Sai, take it easy then. The skinny elder shook his head. Elder Qian smiled. Don't worry, young man. Come, let's compete. Let's see if you can dispel my inner energy. As he spoke, he extended his right palm. Chu Li fist saluted and extended his right palm as well. Their palms met. Bang! There was a muffled sound. Elder Qian's white hair moved even though there was no wind. He wanted to put Chu Li in his place. Chu Li stood firmly in place. His body did not move, and his expression did not change. Elder Qian grinned. You have some skills. Impressive. He felt that his inner energy was like a clay ox entering the sea. As soon as the mighty inner energy touched Chu Li, it disappeared without a trace. There was not even a ripple or movement. It was very strange. Chu Li looked calm, but he was excited. He proposed the Earth Matrix and reincarnation scripture in preparation to absorb everyone's inner energy. The inner energy of these inner mausoleum protectors was extremely pure and suitable for the heavenly demonic orb to devour. Although it was not as fast as the heavenly demonic spirit devouring technique to devour the heavenly demonic orb, it was a rare opportunity. He believed that his heavenly demonic power would improve after sparring with these inner mausoleum protectors. He could not miss such a good opportunity. As for the origin of the Earth Matrix and reincarnation scripture, his identity as a secret guardian was enough to convince people that the Earth Matrix and reincarnation scripture could not be subverted. Otherwise, no one would agree to let him enter the inner mausoleum. After a quarter of an hour, white steam rose from the top of Elder Qian's head. He continued to channel his inner energy until he was exhausted. Chu Li gently released a palm energy and sent Elder Qian flying. Elder Qian landed steadily and exclaimed, "What a powerful young man! I'll do it!" Another elder flew out, excited to see the prey. A few of them sat back down in disappointment, not wanting to be the first to go. Chu Li did not reject anyone and extended his hand. He did not look like he had just fought 2 rounds of inner energy. He was still in high spirit. A quarter of an hour later, the old man flew out again. Yo, it looks like the little fellow is going to defeat all the masters in the inner mausoleum. The skinny elder laughed. Zhao Xian laughed and said, If you can defeat all of us, that would be wonderful. Chu Li used his inner energy and smiled. I wouldn't dare to hope for that. Little Lu has already held on for 3 days. Once he's rested, everyone will try again. The skinny old man smiled. Old Meng is the last one. Elder Su, give me 2 more. Look, little Lu doesn't look tired at all. That's right. Do you have any shame? How old are you? This has nothing to do with age. I just want to see how far he can go. This Earth Matrix and reincarnation scripture is really powerful. The reincarnation temple is better than the Tempest temple. How can the temple's divine technique not be powerful? However, the more powerful a martial art is, the harder it is to cultivate. Little Lu can be considered a genius for cultivating to this level. It's a pity he's unlucky. How did he get thrown into the Imperial Mausoleum? Something went wrong and he was thrown here by the Emperor. He's really unlucky. Sigh, this is fate. While the crowd was discussing, Chu once again sent the old man flying. He was satisfied. His heavenly demonic power had improved a little. If he did not use the heavenly demonic spirit devouring technique, he did not know how long it would take for him to improve so much. All right. Let little Lu rest for a day. The skinny old man smiled. I'm Su Jinshan. Little Lu, you're an inner mausoleum protector from today onwards. Chu fist saluted. Thank you, Elder Su. Don't thank me. You earned it yourself. Su Jinshan smiled. Once you enter the inner mausoleum, your task will be heavier. You can live in the outer mausoleum and guard the inner mausoleum for 1 day every 2 days. Yes, Chu said. I wanted to see the wonders of the enlightened master's golden body. You'll have plenty of opportunities in the future. Now go outside and make arrangements, Su Jinshan said. Chu fist saluted. Let's go, little Lu. Follow me out. I'll find you a place to stay first. Zhao Xian flicked his horsetail whisk and smiled. Chu fist saluted the crowd and left with Zhao Xian. The elders stared at Chu back. Finally, an interesting little fellow. Xiao Hu, you're not the youngest anymore. The middle-aged man smiled helplessly. I didn't expect him to be so powerful. I'm ashamed. What's there to be ashamed about? This is the martial arts world. He benefited from the Earth Matrix and reincarnation scripture, so he can transform inner energy and the enlightened master's force. I wonder how far he can get to the golden body. I think it won't be a problem to get within 10 feet. 10 feet. I'm afraid it'll be difficult. The closest is 15 feet. Elder Su, do you think little Lu can get within 10 feet? More or less. The skinny elder Su Jinshan nodded. The Earth Matrix and reincarnation scripture is mysterious beyond compare. He has a deep understanding of it. It's not impossible for him to get within 10 feet. This little Lu is really lucky. The closer one got to the golden body, the greater the benefit and the deeper the understanding of the enlightened master. Most of them could not get within 30 feet. Only 2 of them could get within 10 feet. They were so close to touching the golden body. Most of them could only hover around 30 feet away. Don't be discouraged, everyone. Try to catch up to little Lu. Chu and Zhao Xian left the inner mausoleum and walked up the stairs to the palace on the ground. This was where the outer mausoleum was. Although there was no longer the pressure from before, divine power and inner energy could not be used. Zhao Xian led him straight to the back and entered the imperial garden. The imperial garden was lush with flowers. Due to the protection of the formation, it was evergreen all year round. It was as warm as spring. The flowers were still blooming and their fragrance permeated the air. Little Lu, you can choose a courtyard in the imperial garden to live in, Zhao Xian said with a smile. Are you satisfied with this place? Isn't this a little overstepping my bounds? Chu asked. Zhao Xian shook his head. Inner mausoleum protectors can live in the imperial garden. This is a rule, not an overstepping. Even if they enter the imperial house, inner mausoleum protectors can live in the imperial garden. Chu nodded slowly and smiled. Alright, pick one. Zhao Xian smiled. Don't be dazzled. Chu smiled and walked around the entire imperial garden. Then, he picked a waterside pavilion on a small lake. Zhao Xian smiled and nodded. He called for someone to come and clean it up. Chu left the outer mausoleum and returned to adjacent town. After returning to Lu Shuzhou's residence, he appeared in his own residence in a flash. It was noon. Xiao Qi was taking a nap in her room. Hearing movement, she came out in a white tunic. Her hair was loose and she looked languid and delicate. It was completely different from her usual cold demeanor. She was soft and charming, gentle like water. The huge contrast was particularly touching. Chu Li's heart pounded and he reached out to her. Xiao Qi rolled her eyes at him and sat opposite him in the gazebo. Chu Li's heart itched even more. A faint fragrance floated in front of his nose. He wanted nothing more than to hug her. 3 days and 3 nights. Are you okay? Chapter 2973. P.S. Update complete. 10 times. Chu Li frowned. He was already feeling uncomfortable just standing there. The Earth Matrix and Reincarnation scripture was desperately converting the inner energy of the cloud slashing power. The Mahavairokkana's immobility scripture was also resisting the pressure of the enlightened master's power. If the power was 10 times stronger, he really did not know how powerful it would be. He might not even be able to stand steadily. Hu Feixing said, "The guards of Chongwen Hall are old Zhao and old Su. They have 500 years of cultivation." Chu Li was shocked. It's really been 500 years? The lifespan of a grandmaster was usually around 300 years. The oldest could live up to 350 years. It seemed like that was the limit of their lifespan. No one could live past 500 years. How could this be fake? Hu Feixing scoffed and said, "They are only 1 step away from becoming an enlightened master. Unfortunately, this step is as difficult as ascending to the heavens." "Isn't it said that it's hard for heavenly gods to appear?" Chu Li frowned and said, "The news I heard is that there can only be 2 enlightened masters in a country, 1 civil and 1 military. Other than that, there won't be any other enlightened masters." "That's true in the outside world." Hu Feixing nodded. "But it's different in the Imperial Mausoleum." Chu Li was stunned. Hu Feixing said, "Look at these former emperors, they are all enlightened masters. Even though their souls have flown to the sky beyond heaven, their bodies are still circulating their heart techniques, they are still in the enlightened master realm." Chu Li nodded thoughtfully. Hu Feixing said, "Because the Imperial Mausoleum is equipped with extremely powerful formations and treasures, it can form a world of its own, unfettered by the rules of heaven and earth. If you want to become an Empyrean god, you have to do it inside the Imperial Mausoleum. You won't be able to become an Empyrean god outside." "So even if I become an enlightened master, I can't go out?" Chu Li frowned. Hu Feixing said, "As long as I become a heavenly deity, I won't violate the heavenly laws." Chu Li nodded thoughtfully. "In other words, once I become an enlightened master, I can leave the mausoleum and God won't care?" "Exactly." Hu Feixing said, "Elder Zhao and Elder Su have high hopes of taking the last step to become an enlightened master. Even if they can't leave the mausoleum after becoming an enlightened master, they can still ascend to heaven directly and step into the Grandmaster's boundary." Chu Li sighed and nodded. No wonder they wanted to enter the inner mausoleum. It turned out that the chances of becoming an enlightened master were very high, and it was not known to outsiders that enlightened masters could not become enlightened masters. Hu Feixing said, "Do you think we're all fools? Why would we do something that has no hope? Let me tell you, other than the indestructible golden bodies of the previous emperors, there are also a few indestructible golden bodies of the inner mausoleum protectors." Chu Li was really surprised this time. 10 in total. Hu Feixing sighed. Outsiders do not know about these 10 Empyrean God Realm experts. Even when they left the Imperial Tomb, they did not reveal their identities as Empyrean God Realm experts. No one knew about it. In the end, they came back here and returned to heavens beyond. Chu Li smiled bitterly. "There are actually 10 of them. That's why we're all working hard to become the 11th heavenly god." Hu Feixing said, "Now that you know this, do you still want to return to God's capital?" Chu Li smiled bitterly. "I'm really short-sighted. That's why you should just obediently cultivate." Hu Feixing said, "Comprehend it with your heart. Maybe you can also become a heavenly god." Chu Li smiled and shook his head. If it were not for the fact that he was determined to defy nature and become a god, he might not have been able to resist staying in the inner mausoleum, ignoring King En, and continue to comprehend until he reached the enlightened mastery's boundary. With his comprehension, he did not believe that he was inferior to others. If someone could become an enlightened master, so could he. It seemed that he had underestimated this formation. No wonder he could not find the veins and flaws of the formation. He did not know which master had set up the formation, or was it purely a grandmaster's teaching. All right, comprehend it yourself. If you can move forward, do it yourself. Hu Feixing did not want to say more and sat on his cattail hassock. Get as close as you can, as long as you don't touch the previous emperor. What if you touch the previous emperor? You'll be courting death. Hu Feixing closed his eyes and said, the ancestors all have the enlightened master's heart technique circulating in their bodies. Once you touch them, it's no different from taking a blow from an enlightened master. There's no chance of survival. I advise you not to act recklessly. Chu Li Fist saluted and said no more. Hu Feixing chuckled and said no more. He had asked the same question when he first entered the inner mausoleum. He felt that he would soon be able to reach the previous emperor's golden body and touch the indestructible golden body. Only now did he realize how ignorant he was. Lu Shuzhou's question reminded him of himself in the past, full of ambition and confidence. He thought that he was the strongest and could do what others could not. He tried his best to circulate the Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture and Mahavairokkana's Immobility Scripture at the same time. Under the influence of the enlightened master's power, they were circulating at a speed much faster than usual, allowing them to improve rapidly. However, it was not easy to advance the Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture and Mahavairokkana's Immobility Scripture. It was just better than before. As for advancing to the next level, it was as difficult as ascending to heaven. He did not know how long it would take. He did not have that much time to waste. Time waited for no man, and King An would not wait for him to get everything ready in peace. He took a step forward and the pressure suddenly increased. Mahavairokkana's Immobility Scripture and Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture circulated even faster. He paused for a moment to get used to it before he continued to move forward. He moved forward step by step. The potential of Mahavairokkana's Immobility Scripture and Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture was huge. With all his might, he managed to step within 100 feet, the same distance as Hu Feixing. Although Hu Feixing's eyes were closed, he had been paying attention to Chu Li. He was shocked when he saw Chu Li advancing to 100 feet so quickly. Then, under his shocked gaze, Chu Li continued to move forward. As he took a step forward, his body trembled slightly, as if he was standing in a huge wave and was about to collapse at any time. After a while, he stabilized his body and adapted to it, then he took another step forward. Step by step, Chu Li advanced 50 feet forward. After 50 feet, he could no longer move forward. He felt that Mahavairokkana's Immobility Scripture and Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture had reached their limit. He could not go any further, so he stopped at 50 feet and meditated without moving. Time slowed down. He felt as if it was a year. It was as if he could not hold on any longer and would fly out. As the Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture transformed, the cloud-slashing power inner energy in his body became more vigorous. He suddenly came up with an idea. Could he use the cloud-slashing power to activate his light body technique and leap onto the indestructible golden body? At the same time, he could use the heavenly demonic spirit devouring technique to seize the enlightened master's energy and complete his mission. He could use this to kill King An. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that it was a neat idea. Step by step, he approached the invincible golden body. As he got closer, he felt that his speed was getting slower and slower. He was only 6 feet away, and it would take him a year to cross it. As for the final 10 feet, it might even take him 10 or 20 years. He could not afford that much time. King An might have already killed Xiao Shi by then. What would be the point of killing him then? He had to kill King An before he dealt with the public house. Otherwise, once King An died, the emperor would vent his anger on the public house, and it would inevitably decline. As he thought about this, his Mahavairokkana's immobility scripture and earth matrix and reincarnation scripture sped up again. He was prepared to rush forward. However, he also understood that the moment he approached the indestructible golden body, the earth matrix and reincarnation scripture and Mahavairokkana's immobility scripture and earth matrix and reincarnation scripture might collapse immediately. He might not be able to keep his life. After a while, he decided to take the risk. He still had the life and death scripture. This was the source of his confidence in taking risk. With that thought in mind, he leaped up and shot towards the stairs like a stone. Bang! A muffled sound was heard. He stopped when he was 20 feet away from the indestructible golden body. Then, he flew out and spat out a mouthful of blood in the air. He immediately fainted. Hu Feixing was dumbfounded. He watched as Chu Li flew past and back. He fell heavily on the green brick floor and fainted. He never thought that Chu Li would do such a stupid thing. Anyone with a little bit of rationality would not do this. This was courting death. He really did not want to live anymore. When Chu Li woke up, he was lying in his waterside pavilion. The bright sunlight shone into the waterside pavilion and fell on the window. There was no one else in the waterside pavilion. He got up with difficulty. He had a splitting headache. All his divine powers had disappeared, and he could not open the void in his mind. His body was fine. The cloud-slashing power's inner energy was still there. It was just that his internal organs were slightly injured and his body was weak. Chapter 2974. Even if his martial arts were crippled, he still had the earth matrix and reincarnation scripture. Even if the void of his mind was severely damaged, he still had the heavenly demonic stone. Even if he lost his life, he still had the life and death scripture. Since he had nothing to fear, he naturally wanted to take the risk. Fortunately, his martial arts were not crippled, but he could not use his divine art. The void of his mind was sealed once again. He did not know if it was broken or if he was temporarily injured, but he was not that worried. He took out the demonic stone pillow and laid his head on it. Cold air entered his mind, as if he had drunk a bowl of sour plum juice under the scorching sun. The heavenly demonic stone pillow was placed on the back of his head. The other heavenly demonic stone, which was used to perform the demon hunting technique, was much smaller. He tied it with a knot and wore it around his neck, nourishing his spirit. With the two superimposed, the effect was multiplied. He estimated that it wouldn't take long for him to recover. He had seen the aura of the heavenly demon statue, and it was not inferior to the might of an enlightened god. Therefore, the power of an enlightened god's attack might not be comparable to the heavenly demon statue. A moment later, the sound of footsteps could be heard. Zhao Xian and Su Jinshan appeared in the waterside pavilion. Their faces were gloomy and their eyes were cold. Chu Li stood up and gave a fist salute. "Not bad, little Lu, you've got guts." Zhao Xuanbai's chubby face seemed to be smiling. "You're pretty tough too." The skinny Su Jinshan stared at him coldly with a straight face. Chu Li smiled bitterly. "I didn't expect the indestructible golden body to be so powerful." Su Jinshan said coldly, "Do you know that you've broken the rules of the inner mausoleum protectors?" Chu Li asked, "What prohibition? Xiao Hu didn't tell you?" Su Jinshan frowned. Chu Li shook his head. He knew that the situation was serious, and at this time, he could only grasp this point. Those who did not know were not guilty, and even if they were guilty, they would be pardoned. Su Jinshan turned to look at Zhao Xian. Zhao Xian smiled bitterly and said, "It's very possible. Little Hu still has a knot in his heart about little Lu. Maybe he doesn't think that little Lu would do this. This is no different from suicide." "Yes." Su Jinshan nodded slowly and said, If that's the case, then I'll make it clear to you. The inner mausoleum protectors guard the heavenly god's golden body to prevent anyone from breaking in and destroying it. Chu Li interrupted him and asked in surprise, "There's someone who can destroy an enlightened master's golden body? You think I can't?" Su Jinshan said coldly. Chu Li pondered for a moment and slowly nodded. "Yes." Zhao Xian laughed. "Little Lu, if it were you, what would you do? There are many ways." Chu Li said, "Like using hidden weapons or arrows directly. The enlightened master's aura can stop martial arts masters from approaching, but it can't stop hidden weapons from approaching, right?" "Smart." Zhao Xian smiled and nodded. Su Jinshan said coldly, "As an inner mausoleum protector, one of the benefits is that you can study the power of an enlightened master up close. From there, you can understand the secrets of an enlightened master and enter the enlightened master's boundary. Although you can't go out and do whatever you want, you can be free and unfettered. Or you can directly ascend to the outland, transcend reincarnation, and obtain the longevity of a deva." There was another world above the heaven beyond heaven, where celestials lived. They lived for tens of thousands of years, and even if they died, they could directly return to the heaven beyond heaven. Ordinary people would enter the cycle of reincarnation after death, and might not even be able to live as humans in their next life. Chu Li nodded. Su Jinshan said, "But we inner mausoleum protectors have one of the most fundamental and unbreakable prohibitions, which is not to touch the enlightened master's golden body. This is disrespectful to the late emperor, so those who touch the enlightened master's golden body are directly expelled from the inner mausoleum." Chu Li was stunned. "Expelled from the inner mausoleum?" "That's right," Su Jinshan said in a low voice, "and you can never enter the inner mausoleum." "I'm so wronged." Chu Li smiled bitterly. "I didn't touch the enlightened master's golden body at all." Su Jinshan scoffed. "Fortunately, you didn't touch it." Chu Li suddenly let out a long sigh of relief, knowing that there was still room for change. He hurriedly said, "Elder Su, what's the punishment?" Su Jinshan said, "You're not allowed to enter the inner mausoleum for a year." Chu Li suddenly looked bitter. He was secretly anxious. Not being able to enter the inner mausoleum for a year was really terrible. Zhao Xian smiled. "Young Lu, you haven't recovered from your injuries. You can recuperate now. This is both a punishment and a protection for you." Chu Li smiled bitterly. "If I'm not allowed to enter the inner mausoleum for a year, I might as well be killed." "Do you like the inner mausoleum that much?" Zhao Xian smiled. "For most people, the inner mausoleum is a painful place." Chu Li shook his head. "I have the Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture, which can remove the enlightened master's power. Moreover, the Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture has advanced very quickly, and my cultivation level has increased greatly. This is a critical time. How can I not enter the inner mausoleum? There's no other way. You've done something wrong." Zhao Xian shook his head. Chu Li coughed softly. "Actually, Elder Su and Elder Zhao are mistaken." "What mistake?" Zhao Xian smiled. Su Jinshan looked at him. Chu Li said, "I didn't want to touch the enlightened master's golden body. I just wanted to test the enlightened master's power. I didn't intend to touch the enlightened master's golden body." Zhao Xian was stunned and looked at Su Jinshan. Su Jinshan frowned. Chu Li hurriedly said, "Of course I know I can't touch the golden body. I'm just trying to see how far I can go. I didn't expect the golden body's power to be so powerful. I can't go any further than 30 feet. I heard that Elder Su can go 10 feet away from the enlightened master's golden body. He's the first person in the inner mausoleum." "Not bad, young man. You know this." Zhao Xian smiled. Chu Li said, "Of course I can't compare to Elder Su's 500 years of cultivation, so I wanted to see how close I could get." "Really?" Zhao Xian asked deliberately. He turned to look at Su Jinshan. "Young Lu is really naughty." He's a young man indeed, quick-witted and lively. Su Jinshan scoffed. Both he and Zhao Xian knew that Chu Li was talking nonsense. However, such a statement could be justified without any flaws. The most important thing was that he really did not touch the enlightened master's golden body, so he did not violate the prohibition. Zhao Xian smiled. Look at how badly injured young Lu is. He probably won't recover in a month or two. It's the price of being naughty. Why don't we just forget it? His injuries are already punishment. Chu Li hurriedly fist saluted and said seriously, Elder Su, I'll restrain myself in the future. Don't. Zhao Xian smiled. The inner mausoleum is getting boring. It's rare to see someone as lively as you. He looked at Su Jinshan. Isn't that right, Elder Su? Su Jinshan frowned at Chu Li. Chu Li smiled at Su Jinshan. The punishment was indeed up to Su Jinshan. If he did not touch the enlightened master's golden body, he would be punished according to his motive. He could say anything he wanted. This matter needs to be discussed with everyone, Su Jinshan said in a low voice. Elder Su, what's there to discuss? You can decide on such a small matter. Zhao Xian smiled. It's not a big deal. No one will have any opinions. All right. Su Jinshan shook his head. Only this once. If there's a next time, there's really no way to make an exception. Thank you, Elder Su. Chu Li was overjoyed. Su Jinshan said, the next time you encounter the golden body, don't say you don't know. It's useless even if you don't know. Yes. Chu Li solemnly fist saluted. Chapter 2975. After the two left, Chu Li lay quietly on the heavenly demonic stone pillow to recover from his injuries. He sighed to himself. An enlightened master was so terrifying. It seemed that he had underestimated an enlightened master. Before he could even get close, his mind's void was already destroyed. He had taken it for granted. He thought that after killing Kingen, he could withstand the emperor's attack and use his divine power to escape to the Fu dynasty's Jian kingdom. He could then escape unscathed. Now, he realized that he had been too optimistic. An enlightened master's attack was not only about inner energy but also spiritual energy. Even if he was not seriously injured, his mind's void would probably be destroyed. He would not be able to use his divine power at all. How could he escape? It seemed that divine power was not enough against an enlightened master. He had to prepare for two things. First, he had to strengthen his soul energy. Second, he had to cultivate the heavenly demonic power to the level of heavenly demonic sect leader Fu Qingya. Even without divine power, he could rely on the heavenly demonic power to escape the enlightened master's attack. The next evening, the setting sun illuminated the waterside pavilion. The lake was like a brocade, sparkling like a red brocade. It was beautiful and moving. Chu Li stepped out of the waterside pavilion and came to the veranda above the lake. He leaned against the railing and looked down at the fish in the lake thoughtfully. The mind's void had recovered and was stronger than before. There could be no construction without destruction. His mind's void kept getting stronger as it collapsed again and again. Did the mind's void need to be cultivated like this? Or was it because he cultivated 4 scriptures and 1 mirror, and even the life and death scripture? However, he knew that if he wanted to withstand the emperor's attack, his mind's void had to be strengthened continuously. When he finally arrived at Chongwen Hall, he would be able to get close to an enlightened master without collapsing. He subconsciously used the omniscient mirror and was startled. He smiled. The omniscient mirror could leave his body. Although it could only observe a 1-meter radius from his body, it was significant. If the omniscient mirror could leave his body, it meant that he could use divine power to offset the suppression of formations and treasures. Unfortunately, if he wanted to use God's limbs, he had to observe at least 5 miles. Mahavairokkana's immobility scripture had improved again. It could resist formations and treasures that suppressed divine power. This meant that he was on the right path. If he could freely use divine power in the inner mausoleum, it would be much easier to obtain enlightened master's energy. When he thought of King En, he got up and slowly walked out of the imperial garden, leaving the outer mausoleum. As soon as Chu Li stepped out of the outer mausoleum's main gate, his body instantly felt relaxed. His omniscient mirror immediately scanned the area within a radius of 10 miles, including the entire adjacent town. He saw his own residence, Shao Qi, and a graceful woman in white in the residence. Although her face was covered with a white veil, he recognized Lu Yurong at first glance. He smiled and returned to Lu Shuzhou's residence before vanishing in a flash and reappearing in his own residence. Under the sunset glow, Shao Qi and Lu Yurong were having a duel. Their white shadows fluttered and their swords flashed, but their figures could not be seen clearly. One of them used a sword while the other used a palm. Their movements were as graceful as a dance. Chu Li was surprised. He did not expect Shao Qi's martial arts to improve so much. Lu Yurong's Empyrean fairy heart scripture was miraculous, and her comprehension was amazing. Her cultivation level was extremely high, and her martial arts was one of the best among the younger generation. In the past, she had always suppressed Shao Qi, but now she could not suppress Shao Qi. It was not that her cultivation level did not improve, but Shao Qi's improvement was faster. Chu Li clapped his hands and applauded. Lu Yurong flew away gracefully and removed the white veil that covered her face, revealing her charming face. Her eyes were as clear as autumn water, and they were soul-stirring. Shao Qi sheathed her sword. Chu Li clapped and praised. Miss Yurong, your palm technique has improved. Lu Yurong frowned as she studied Chu Li. She realized that Chu Li had changed so much that she could not see through him. He was like a mountain or a sea, and it felt like he could devour her at any time. She even had the urge to worship him. He was obviously much stronger than her. Not only was his cultivation level not affected when he was trapped in adjacent town, but he had also become much stronger. She was no longer on the same level as him. It seemed like she had to return to isolated cultivation. Shao Qi turned around and brought out 3 cups of tea. She placed them on the stone table in the gazebo. Lu Yurong sat by the stone table and took a sip of tea. She looked at Chu Li. Did you have another fortuitous encounter? Chu Li smiled. I did have some enlightenment. You can improve your martial arts skills here? Lu Yurong scoffed. Chu Li smiled. There's nothing to worry about here. It's a peaceful place to practice martial art. And a beauty to accompany you. Lu Yurong scoffed. All right, I've failed the task you asked me to do. Why? You couldn't hurt him? Chu Li frowned. Lu Yurong scoffed. Not only did I not hurt him, I was almost caught by him. This guy is very powerful now. You might not be able to defeat him in the past. Chu Li frowned. What martial arts does he practice? I don't know. Lu Yurong shook her head. His inner energy is very strong. It doesn't look like it came from a fortuitous encounter. It's more like 100 years of hard work from a master. Its power is shocking and terrifying. Chu Li was deep in thought. Lu Yurong said, his appearance has changed a lot. It's like he's a different person. He's angry and will explode at any time. He looks like he's in a state of madness. I'm not sure if it's because of his martial arts or his unstable state of mind. Chu Li sighed. He's too lucky. Lu Yurong smiled. Her smile was like a flower. This guy is very difficult to deal with. You've been crippled a few times, but he's getting stronger. You must be depressed, right? Chu Li glared at her. Shao Qi asked, did he add someone to his side? That monk from the Titanium Temple is gone. Lu Yurong said. Chu Li sighed. How troublesome. What's so troublesome? You can just go and kill him. Lu Yurong smiled. Shao Qi glared at her. Lu Yurong said, this guy is trouble. Why don't you cripple his martial arts again? Once, twice, no 3 or 4 times. Chu Li shook his head. If I cripple his martial arts again, the Emperor will make a move. If that's the case, Lu Yurong muttered. Is there really no way to deal with him? Let's wait and see. Chu Li said. Previously, in order to stop King An from going crazy and not let him focus on the public house, he asked Lu Yurong to help him assassinate King An. It would be best if King An was heavily injured and bedridden. Even if he did not die, he would need to recuperate for a while. When he obtained the enlightened master's energy, he would then deal with King An. He did not expect Lu Yurong to fail to deal with King An. Lu Yurong's martial arts was already top-notch. When the protectors from Tianshu courtyard left, the protectors from King An's imperial residence could not stop Lu Yurong. It was easy to assassinate King An, but he did not expect King An to be able to deal with Lu Yurong. Things did not always go according to his plan. Initially, he wanted to slowly obtain the enlightened master's energy, but reality forced him to rush. He had to obtain the enlightened master's energy as soon as possible so that his soul energy was strong enough. Let her accompany you around adjacent town. I'm going out for a while. Chu Li fist saluted. Lu Yurong rolled her eyes. Chu Li smiled apologetically and stood up to leave. He could not wait to return to the inner mausoleum and seize every second to strengthen himself. Lu Yurong watched him leave and turned to look at Shao Qi. What is he doing? Cultivating, Shao Qi said. Lu Yurong said, he's not cultivating here. Lu Yurong shook her head. Lu Yurong frowned at Shao Qi. What is he going to do? Who knows? Shao Qi said. Lu Yurong scoffed. You're lying. Is he going to deal with King An himself? Shao Qi shook her head. This was not a trivial matter. She could not tell a third person. Chapter 2976. Chu Li returned to the inner mausoleum and went to a basilica in Jing Tian Pavilion. After greeting Hu Feixing, he stood still. The monstrous aura kept pressing down on him, but he kept moving forward as if he was going against the current. Every step almost made him faint. The heavenly demonic stone hung on his chest. A steady stream of cool air nourished his mind and kept him awake. The giant Buddha and the heavenly demon chanted desperately under the heavy pressure. Their speed was 10 times faster than usual. Lotuses of various colors merged into the giant Buddha and the heavenly demon, making them more solid and their soul energy stronger. Chu Li felt that this extreme state was the most suitable for cultivation. However, without the omniscient mirror, he would not be able to maintain this state without such a clear mind. Wisps of cool air were used by the omniscient mirror to maintain the extreme state. He slowly took another step forward. The giant Buddha and the heavenly demon's speed increased to 20 times their usual speed. Countless lotus flowers danced in the air, filling the entire space of his mind with lotus flowers. They landed on the giant Buddha and the heavenly demon, and the soul power grew stronger and stronger. Hu Feixing's eyes widened in disbelief as Chu Li approached the indestructible golden body. 60 feet, 50 feet, 40 feet, 30 feet, 20 feet. When he was 20 feet away, he did not pass out. His body trembled, but he did not fall. Then, 10 feet. Finally, he stood at the bottom of the step. Chu Li reached the bottom of the step. It seemed like he had reached his limit. Hu Feixing let out a long sigh. He did not know how to take another step forward. It was too fast. Lu Shuzhou seemed to have become a completely different person. Did his injuries increase his strength? After 10 minutes, Chu Li took a step up the step. Wait! Hu Feixing shouted. Chu Li turned to look at him. His eyes were bloodshot. He was being oppressed by an invisible force. He was trying his best not to fall. The Earth Matrix and Reincarnation scripture was converting desperately. The inner energy of the cloud slashing power was so pure that it pressured his meridians. Hu Feixing said, "We inner mausoleum protectors can't touch the golden body." Chu Li replied, "Of course." "Then why are you going up the steps?" Hu Feixing asked. Chu Li's voice was hoarse. To see how close I can get. Then be careful. Hu Feixing scoffed. Don't blame me for being merciless if you touch it. Chu Li took a deep look at him and slowly took another step forward. With every step he took, the pressure around him increased by a fraction. The Earth Matrix and Reincarnation scripture protected his body, while the giant Buddha and Heavenly Devil chanted the scripture in his mind with all their might, causing his soul to grow stronger by leaps and bounds. He could feel that the strength of his soul did not only come from the 4 meridians and 1 mirror, but also from the power of the heavenly demonic stone. The cool air of the heavenly demonic stone could only replenish the loss of his soul, but it could not strengthen it. However, under such extreme conditions, it could strengthen his soul. If it wasn't for the heavenly demonic stone, he wouldn't have been able to hold on for so long no matter how powerful he was. His soul wouldn't have strengthened so quickly either. From the looks of it, the heavenly demonic stone was indeed a mystical item. He had to obtain the heavenly demonic heavenly demon statue. The last time he was defeated by the heavenly demon statue, his soul had improved tremendously after he woke up. This time, after being defeated by the enlightened God's aura, his soul had also improved slightly after he woke up. However, it was still far from the damage he received from the heavenly demon statue. It was most likely due to the heavenly demonic stone. The first step, the second step, the third step, the fourth step, all the way to the 9th step. Chu Li stopped. If he went any further, he would have to face the enlightened master's golden body. He stood motionless on the 9th step. The energy of the heavenly demonic stone desperately entered his mind and strengthened his soul. Suddenly, the omniscient mirror leaped out and could leave his body to observe the outside world. The pressure here was far greater than the outer mausoleum. The formation and divine power suppression treasures were even more powerful. The fact that the omniscient mirror could leave his body showed how strong his soul was. Suddenly, he had a flash of inspiration. A set of heart techniques automatically appeared in his mind. It was passed down by the heavenly demon. The extremely pure inner energy of the cloud-slashing power suddenly changed its route and circulated along the heavenly demon heart technique that he had just obtained. Previously, he only inherited the heavenly demonic orb and the heavenly demon scripture, so he could only use the devouring technique to cultivate. This set of heart techniques was extremely mysterious. The inner energy that circulated along this heart technique could be absorbed into the heavenly demonic orb to strengthen the cultivation of the heavenly demonic power. With this set of heavenly demonic heart technique, the heavenly demonic orb changed from a picky eater to an omnivorous one. Originally, it only devoured pure energy and did not care about anything that was not pure enough. Now it could enter the heavenly demonic orb through the cultivation of inner energy. He was overjoyed. With the life and death scripture, he had no lack of inner energy. He could directly convert the spiritual energy of heaven and earth into the inner energy of the heavenly demonic heart technique. Then, he could continuously replenish the heavenly demonic orb. This way, the progress of the heavenly demonic power would be extremely fast. The inner energy that the Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture converted into the enlightened Master's might could also be directly converted into the inner energy of the heavenly demonic heart technique. This way, the advancement of the heavenly demonic power would be extremely fast. He was excited. After suffering for so long, he finally saw a glimmer of hope. "You want to enter Chongwen Hall?" Su Jinshan frowned at Chu Li. Everyone was sitting in the basilica of the meeting room. When they heard Chu Li's words, they all looked at him. Chu Li slowly said, "Yes, I want to see Chongwen Hall." It was the morning of the second day. They were assigning tasks when Chu Li interrupted and asked to be on duty in Chongwen Hall. This surprised everyone. "Do you know that you're courting death?" Su Jinshan scoffed. Chu Li said, "I can already walk to the side of the late Second Emperor." Su Jinshan looked at Hu Feixing. Hu Feisheng nodded reluctantly. He reached the 9th step. Everyone's gaze changed from ridicule to curiosity. They had all climbed up from Jing Tian Pavilion step by step and knew how difficult the process was. They did not expect Chu Li to finish the journey that took them years in just a few days. Su Jinshan said, "Then you'll be on duty in the 3rd Emperor's Hall." Chu Li said, "I want to see Chong Wen Hall first." "Alright, looks like I'll have to teach you a lesson." Su Jinshan finally agreed and said, "But you must be prepared to be injured. I'm afraid you won't recover in a year and a half." "It's all right," Chu Li said. Everyone's gaze turned to ridicule again. It was as if they could already see Chu Li vomiting blood and flying out of Chongwen Hall. "The rest will be done according to the rules. Young Lu, come with me." Su Jinshan left the armchair. "Yes." Chu Li Fist saluted and followed Su Jinshan out of the meeting room and to Chongwen Hall. The moment Su Jinshan opened the door, Chu Li felt a raging wave rushing at him like a broken dam. It was about to send him flying. His face flushed red. The giant Buddha and the heavenly demon chanted mantras madly. The earth matrix and reincarnation scripture circulated with all their might, turning it into inner energy that flowed along the heavenly demon heart technique and into the heavenly demonic orb. Su Jinshan looked at Chu Li, who was standing still at the door with a faint smile. He wanted to see if Chu Li could step into the hall. This was only the first stage. Judging from his posture, he did not have much hope. The power at the door was worlds apart from the inside of the hall. It was difficult for him to even stand at the door. There was no way he could enter. Chu Li slowly took a step forward. It was as if he was carrying a mountain. Su Jinshan entered without closing the door. Chapter 2977. Chu Li felt like he was a blade of grass in a mountain torrent, swaying from the impact of the flood. He was unsteady, but he did not break. His vision darkened, but his willpower grew stronger. The omniscient mirror seemed to be polished until it shone brighter and more flawless, and his mind became clearer. The cool air from the heavenly demonic stone in his chest grew thicker. His mind was like the heavenly demonic orb, which had the ability to devour. It kept devouring the cool air, and the void of his mind grew stronger. He was approaching the enlightened master's golden body step by step in the inner mausoleum. His inner energy cultivation level did not increase much, but his soul was much stronger, advancing by leaps and bounds. The giant Buddha and the heavenly demon became clearer. Their facial features became more exquisite and real, and the lines of their skin could be seen clearly as if they were really alive. His body became stronger, and his heavenly demonic body and divine light body improved. With every step he took, his strength increased by leaps and bounds, undergoing earth-shattering changes. He lifted his foot and stepped over the threshold. The surging power reached its peak, and he was almost flattened. His vision turned black, and his foot was stuck in the air for a long time. He didn't want to step back, but he didn't want to. After a long time, he finally stepped over the threshold. He lifted his other foot and stepped over. The pressure around him suddenly decreased, and he stood firmly. There were already 4 elders sitting in Chongwen Hall, looking at him in surprise. They did not expect him to really step in. The most difficult obstacle was the threshold. It was difficult for those with a weak cultivation level to step over. Once they did, they could stand firm. Even if they could not get close to the enlightened master's golden body, they could still hold on in the hall. This was the beauty of the formation. Su Jinshan nodded in satisfaction. He did not expect Chu Li to advance so much. He really had unlimited potential. Such a person could only be called a genius among geniuses. Chu Li looked at the indestructible golden body in Chongwen Hall. There was a dragon table on the 9 steps in the middle of the hall. A middle-aged man sat on the dragon chair behind the table. He was handsome, and his beard fluttered in the wind. His eyes were slightly closed, as if he was thinking. His skin was as smooth as white jade, glowing. His body emitted a torrential aura that made people's hearts palpitate. Chuli did not stop moving forward. Step by step, he would take a small step forward every short while. Although his strides were small, he did not stop. 150 feet, 14 feet, 13 feet, all the way until he reached 50 feet. He was sweating profusely, and white steam was rising from his body. It seemed like he was competing with someone with inner energy. His eyes were slightly closed, and his expression could not be seen clearly. He was on the verge of collapsing at any moment, but he persisted. He was unusually tenacious, and the four elders sighed inwardly. This little Lu not only had shocking potential, but he also had an iron will. Youngsters nowadays were really amazing. For the next 7 days, Chuli went to Chongwon Hall every day. Step by step, he inched closer to the indestructible golden body. Finally, he was 10 feet away from it, the same distance as Su Jinshan. No matter how hard he tried, he could not get any closer. The last 3 meters was like a heavenly moat, and its might was so dense that it seemed material, causing his body to be unable to move. There was only one heavenly demonic stone left in his chest. These days, he cut the heavenly demonic stone pillow into pieces and wore them around his neck. He consumed 1 heavenly demonic stone a day, and the heavenly demonic stone turned from black as ink to white as jade. The feeling of merging with the giant Buddha and heavenly demonic water body in the void of his mind became clearer. It was as if he was the heavenly demon and the Buddha, and he was chanting the 4 scriptures in the void. The void of his mind became bigger and wider, and it was boundless. The speed at which the Buddha and the heavenly demon chanted the scriptures slowed down, and it was no different from the speed at which they spoke. However, the lotus flowers that were spat out from each word were extremely clear, and they emitted a brilliant brilliance. After merging with his body, he could clearly feel that he had become stronger. Unknowingly, his heavenly demonic power had reached Fu Qingya's level. The heavenly demonic orb turned into a heavenly demonic field that covered 100 feet around him. He could move freely within this 100 feet, and with a single thought, his body would be there. He had truly achieved the heavenly demon's freedom. Although he ignored the divine light body, the level of the divine light body had also increased. Although the transformation of the earth matrix and reincarnation scripture was faster, there was no qualitative change, and it required a deeper understanding. He focused all his attention on the heavenly demonic power, so he did not have the mood to study the earth matrix and reincarnation scripture. Among the 4 scriptures, the Mahavairokkana's immobility scripture improved the fastest. The halo behind the giant Buddha's head became so bright that it could not be looked at directly. It was enough to offset the formation and the treasures that suppressed divine power. With the strengthening of his soul, he speculated that the range of the omniscient mirror and the life and death scripture had increased by a shocking amount, and it might have reached 100 miles. As the last bit of cold air entered his mind, the heavenly demonic stone was completely used up. The distance of 10 feet was like a natural moat in front of him, and he could not break through it. He tried to lift one of his feet, but he could not put it down for a long time. The surging force kept pushing him back. He tried to put down his foot, and suddenly, his whole body creaked. He was bleeding from all his orifices, and his face was horrifying. Su Jinshan, who was opposite him, shook his head with a regretful expression. Su Jinshan stayed at the last 10 feet for 5 years, and he did not step forward. However, he was not in a hurry. 500 years had passed, and he felt that he was not far from it. There was only the last window paper, and once he broke through it, he could become an enlightened master. As he approached the enlightened master's golden body step by step, the most important thing was to understand the wonders of the enlightened master, not power. The most important thing was to slow down, not fast. Lu Shuzhou's cultivation level was not as profound as his, but his soul was strong. This was a unique advantage. If the two of them were to fight, he could easily defeat Lu Shuzhou, but in terms of resisting the enlightened master's power, Lu Shuzhou was stronger. However, no matter how strong Lu Shuzhou was, it was a waste of God's gift to rush for quick success. Every step would give him a unique understanding, and he had to completely digest this understanding before he could move on to the next step unhurriedly and have a new understanding. For hundreds of years, he had approached the enlightened master's golden body step by step, and he was almost at the threshold of the enlightened master. As for Lu Shuzhou, although he had reached the enlightened master's golden body, he could not comprehend it in time. If he were to repeat the process, it would be difficult to trigger his spiritual opportunity, which meant that his path to the enlightened master was broken. It was truly a pity. Perhaps the souls of the people in the hall were not as strong as his and could not advance as quickly, but if they wanted to, they would have reached the enlightened master's golden body a long time ago. If they could, they would not. Not only did they not seek to be fast, but they sought to be slow, afraid that each step would be too short and the understanding would be too little. He had indeed gone astray, but unfortunately, he did not listen to his reminders. Everyone had their own fate and it could not be forced. It could only be said that he was not fated to become an enlightened master in this lifetime. Buzz! Chu Li suddenly formed a seal with both hands and uttered a word. There seemed to be an invisible force spreading in front of him. Chu Li took the opportunity to take a big step forward and stood firmly. Moo! Chu Li formed another seal and took another step forward. The enlightened master's golden body was within reach. He slowly reached out. No! Su Jinshan shouted, his voice like thunder. Chapter 2978. Bam! With a muffled sound, Chu Li flew backward and crashed into the bronze window. An elder waved his hand. Chu Li did not crash into the window but flew in front of him. Don't touch him! Su Jinshan yelled. The elder put his hand down. Chu Li fell to the ground and lay straight. Su Jinshan checked Chu Li's pulse, then pressed on his chest and forehead. He looked up at the three elders and shook his head. He's dead. Dead? The three frowned. Su Jinshan let go and gestured for them to try. After checking one by one, they shook their heads and sighed. This young man was a genius. It's such a shame that he died like this. A tall and sturdy old man with white eyebrows and beard sighed and said, although he is a little eager for quick success, the strength of his divine soul is really rare. This is the first time I've heard of someone being able to encounter an Empyrean god's golden body in such a short time. He was hit by an enlightened master. A tall and thin elder beside him scoffed. How can the enlightened master's energy be so easily touched? Who in this world can withstand an enlightened master's attack? He was courting death. A round-faced elder shook his head. Didn't he know that an enlightened master's golden body contains the enlightened master's energy? He's a smart man. This is suicide, but it's a unique way of committing suicide. The three of them nodded. Anyone who was not an idiot would know that the inner energy in an enlightened master's golden body flowed. Touching it would result in death. However, he purposely touched it. It looked like he was courting death. What a pity! Su Jinshan sighed. He was a genius. Countless geniuses have died in this world. The tall and thin elder scoffed. He wanted to die. Who can stop him? However, this way of death is unique. What should we do with him? Send him out of the inner mausoleum and bury him outside adjacent town. Su Jinshan shook his head. Anyone who touches an enlightened master's golden body can never enter the inner mausoleum. This is a forbidden rule. Even if he dies, he won't be exempted from punishment. He can't be buried in the inner mausoleum. Ah, that's fine. I think he always wanted to go back. The round-faced elder sighed. It's no wonder. He's young after all. How can he be willing to stay in the inner mausoleum forever? He's different from us old men. The four of them were somewhat moved. Su Jinshan brought Chu Li's stiff corpse out of Chongwen Hall. Zhao Xian came over and looked at Chu Li's corpse with a look of pity. He thought highly of Chu Li and felt that this young Lu had a high chance of becoming an enlightened master. Unfortunately, he had died so soon, and they hadn't gotten to know each other better. Old Zhao, the dead can't be brought back to life. Even though he suffered a blow from an enlightened master and no medicine can save him, we still have to be careful. Let him go to Jingtian Pavilion first. After 7 days, send him out of the Imperial Mausoleum and bury him outside adjacent town. Yes. Zhao Xian nodded. He carried Chu Li into a hall in Jingtian Pavilion. This hall was abnormally cold, and the corpses wouldn't rot if they were placed here. 7 days later, Zhao Xian arrived and saw that Chu Li's corpse was as stiff as a rock. There were no abnormalities, so he left the Imperial Mausoleum and went straight to a cemetery outside adjacent town. He found a coffin and buried Chu Li in it. Then, he planted 3 pine trees at the head of the pit and erected a grave for Lu Shuzhou. Once he was done, Zhao Xian drank a few mouthfuls of wine in front of the grave and poured it over the grave. He shook his head and sighed before he fluttered away. Early in the morning, Shao Qi left the wing room with a tired look and went to the courtyard. The courtyard was very quiet. Other than the crisp chirping of birds, there was no other sound. She was not used to not having Chu Li by her side. Even if Chu Li was meditating on the bed in the house, she would feel at peace. She knew that Chu Li had entered the inner mausoleum as Lu Shuzhou to explore the secret of the mausoleum and know his enemy so that he could face the emperor. However, 7 days had passed, and he had not returned. This was an extremely rare situation. Shao Qi's intuition was sharp, and she had been restless for the past 7 days. She had a sudden and ominous feeling that something had happened to Chu Li. However, the inner mausoleum was a place that she could not reach, and news from the mausoleum could not spread out. She did not sleep well last night. Whenever she closed her eyes, the scene of Chu Li's death kept appearing in her mind. Therefore, she could only get up and meditate to get rid of the distracting thoughts. However, the thought that something had happened to Chu Li kept popping up and disturbing her from time to time, making her unable to control herself. She felt that something was wrong and could not help but ask someone to find out about Lu Shuzhou. Knock knock. Someone knocked on the door. Come in. Shao Qi put on a white veil, covering her beautiful face. The main door of the residence was pushed open. Soon, a handsome servant entered and said in a low voice, "Madam, I've heard news about Lu Shuzhou. Where is he?" Shao Qi asked, her eyes shining on the servant. He was a servant from a restaurant in adjacent town. He was her informant and was considered loyal. The servant replied, "He's dead." An inner mausoleum protector with the surname Zhao bought a coffin for him and buried him in the cemetery outside the town. "He's dead." Shao Qi's bright eyes flashed as she replied. The servant nodded. "Old Manly from the coffin shop told me. He saw it with his own eyes. He said that he's been dead for 7 days. He hasn't rotted yet, but it'll be soon." Shao Qi nodded calmly. "All right, I understand. You may go." She took out a silver ingot from her sleeve and tossed it to the servant. The servant hurriedly thanked her and quietly left the residence, closing the main door. Shao Qi waited for him to leave before she slowly stood up with the help of the stone table. Her body was weak and her graceful body trembled slightly. She took a deep breath to calm herself down but could not do it no matter what. There were only 2 words in her mind. Dead, dead, dead. She could not believe this news. Deep in her mind, she was very confident in Chu Li. Even if everyone else died, he would not die. His martial arts skills were superb and he was intelligent. No matter when or how difficult the situation was, he would always have a way to escape. He would not die even if he faced an enlightened master. However, after suffering for 7 days, she had a bad feeling about this. When she heard this news, she could not resist it and could only believe it. She did not want to believe it and was unwilling to believe it. Chu still had too many things to do. His painstaking efforts had not killed King An, he had not become an enlightened master, he had not dominated the world, he had not married her completely, he did not have children, and he had not enjoyed the bliss of a family. He had been busy all day long for the High Duke's public house, for her and her second eldest sister, but he had nothing. He had not stopped to enjoy anything. She could not believe that Chu would leave her one day, and that she would not be able to see him again one day. She clutched her chest as if a sword was mercilessly twisting it. She opened her mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. The white veil was stained red. The white veil was removed and thrown aside. She opened her mouth but could not make a sound. It was as if the pain was tearing her into pieces, but she could not make a sound. The world had lost its color and her ears had lost their sense of hearing. Suddenly, Chu Li's figure flashed in her eyes. Chu Li seemed to be sitting at the stone table. He slowly picked up his teacup and took a sip, smiling at her. She spat out another mouthful of blood and swayed. Chapter 2979. P.S. Update complete. With that thought in mind, Shao-Chi was energized. She kept telling herself that the person who died was not Chu but the real Lu Shuzhou. Although Chu had sent Lu Shuzhou to the Fu dynasty, he might have returned. Shao-Chi forced herself not to consider the flaws in her thoughts. She glided away from adjacent town and soon found Lu Shuzhou's grave. Looking at the newly carved stone, she took a deep breath and began to dig without caring if there was anyone around. She moved quickly and soon found the coffin. When she opened it, she saw a corpse lying inside. It was Chu, who was disguised as Lu Shuzhou. Shao-Chi's white gown was stained with mud, but she did not care as she had always been a clean freak. She jumped into the coffin and stared at Chu-Li's face. After a while, she slowly extended her muddy hand and lifted Chu-Li's left ear to see the 2 moles. Tears gushed out like spring water and dripped onto Chu-Li's face. She was finally sure that this was Chu and not Lu Shuzhou. At that moment, she finally gave up. Chu had once joked that if he were to die, he would not necessarily change his face. However, the 2 moles behind his left ear could not be changed. She could use these 2 moles to confirm his true identity. She could no longer support her own body. She leaned on Chu-Li's body and wept silently. Her tears dripped onto Chu-Li's face. She reached out to wipe them away. As she caressed his cold face, her tears flowed even faster. Amidst her teary eyes, she suddenly kissed Chu-Li's purple lips, which were cold and hard. She was upset and in pain. She had always been reserved and could not fulfill his wish when he was alive. Although they were husband and wife in name, they were not husband and wife. A gust of wind suddenly appeared and fluttered her white gown. She ignored it and continued to kiss Chu-Li's lip. However, the wind grew stronger. The pine tree in front of the grave swayed and was blown down, causing sand and pebbles to fly. Shao-Chi's white gown fluttered and her hair flew. Puzzled, she withdrew her lips and turned to look. She noticed something strange. All the wind seemed to be blowing toward her. A whirlwind formed above the grave, causing leaves and flowers to spin rapidly in the air. She looked down at Chu-Li. Chu-Li's hair fluttered in the wind, and his expression changed. She could feel a trace of warmth coming from Chu-Li's hand. His skin seemed to have turned from a hard and bruised green to a soft, rosy hue. His complexion also quickly faded away and became rosy again. She quickly placed her hand on Chu-Li's wrist and felt a pulse. She was overjoyed. Chu-Li had only faked his death, but he was coming back to life. The whirlwind suddenly disappeared. The flowers and leaves fell and covered Chu-Li and Shao-Chi's bodies. She stared at Chu-Li and watched as he slowly opened his eyes and exhaled a puff of white air. His eyes turned from blank to clear, and then he smiled. Tears streamed down her cheeks like a broken dam. She gripped Chu Li's wrist tightly. Chu Li reached out his hand and wiped away the tears at the corner of her eyes. He smiled and said, "You thought I was dead?" Shao Qi punched Chu Li's chest hard. Chu Li held her hand and disappeared into the coffin. The two of them appeared outside the grave. Chu Li pushed his palm forward, and the coffin was immediately closed. The soil covered the coffin and the grave mound returned to normal. Then, the two of them disappeared in a flash and reappeared in their own residence. They first went to wash up and changed into new clothes. Chu Li returned to his original appearance and changed into a green robe. Shao Qi also changed into a snow-white gown. She had once again regained her untainted coldness and otherworldly appearance. Chu Li called out to her. Chu Li sat cross-legged on the bed. Shao Qi frowned when she saw his tired expression. "Haven't you recovered from your injuries?" "It's fine." Chu Li shook his head and smiled. "I took an enlightened master's energy and haven't recovered yet." "An enlightened master is indeed an enlightened master." Shao Qi frowned. "Don't go anymore." Chu Li nodded. "Yes, you don't have to go anymore. Lu Shuzhou is dead." "What happened?" Shao Qi asked. Chu Li told her what happened and Shao Qi furrowed her brows. "I'm lucky. I won't die so easily." Chu Li smiled. "Don't worry." "Who's worried?" Shao Qi scoffed. She looked deeply at Chu Li. Her heart was filled with joy from regaining what she had lost, and her eyes were bright. Chu Li reached out and pulled her into his arms. She took the opportunity to fall into his arms. Chu Li hugged her soft and fragrant body tightly and was intoxicated. He sighed. "Before I die, you're the one who flashed in front of me. I can't let you go." Shao Qi hugged him tightly without saying a word. Chu Li cupped her face and covered her red lips. Shao Qi closed her eyes and her slender eyebrows trembled. Chu Li slowly placed her on the bed and pressed his body against hers. The sun was shining brightly outside and the spring scenery was boundless inside. The bright sunlight shone brightly in the house. On Chu Li's bed, Shao Qi was lying on his chest with a silk quilt covering her graceful body. Her loose hair was as smooth as black satin and her face was as fair as jade. It was as if a layer of rouge had been applied on her white jade, making her look delicate and alluring. Chu Li's large hand caressed her smooth back as he felt her jade-like body. He sighed in satisfaction. Shao Qi lay on his chest and was embarrassed. She asked softly, "Are you going to kill King An?" "Yes, there'll be no peace until King An is eliminated," Chu Li replied. "Deal with it as it comes. There's no need to kill him. He's a rabid dog now." Chu Li sighed. "He's relentless and has completely lost his mind. If I don't kill him, Lu Xing won't be the only one who will die. The second lady and the public house will be in danger too. Second eldest sister won't allow you to kill him either." "I'm fine." Chu Li hugged her tightly and let her stick to him. He felt the softness and warmth of her body. "I'm confident that I can take a blow from the Emperor and escape safely." Shao Qi looked up at him. Chu Li nodded confidently. "I've taken a blow from an enlightened master before and I know how to take it. With my god's limbs, he won't dare to chase after us if we escape to the Fu dynasty's peace bridge." Shao Qi frowned and remained silent. She knew that Chu Li's god's limbs were mysterious, but she could not help but worry and did not want Chu Li to leave. After this incident, she felt that she had become much weaker and could not bear the pain of losing him. Just thinking about it made her heart palpitate. Chu Li patted her back and smiled. "Once King An dies, the second lady will be able to live a carefree life without fear. The public house will also be free from external threats and live a good life. But you..." Shao Qi frowned. Everyone else was living a good life, but he had to risk his life. It was really unfair. Chu Li said, "After killing Queen An, I might stay in the peace bridge for a while. Don't worry, I'll send a letter back." Things often went awry and plans were often spoiled. He was planning for the worst in advance. Sigh. Shao Qi sighed. Chu Li kissed her fair forehead and smiled. Don't worry, I'm going to become an enlightened master in the future. I won't die so easily. Moreover, I have a secret skill that allows me to come back to life even if I die, so there's no need to rush when you hear about my death. Shao Qi rolled her eyes at him. She felt a lingering fear when she thought about her resurrection. What if she did not come back to life this time? How would she live the rest of her life? Chapter 2980. But what will you do if I leave? Shao Qi frowned and hesitated. She was worried about Shao Shi and Chu Li too. Chu Li smiled. I won't starve to death. How do you usually eat? I'll go to a restaurant. It's fine if I eat it once or twice, but I'll get sick of it if I eat it too much. Chu Li laughed. When Shao Qi, who was as pure as ice and as clean as jade, talked about this, he was touched. It was indescribably interesting. Shao Qi rolled her eyes at him. Eating is not a small matter. Can you really solve it? Don't worry, I'll think of a way. Chu Li smiled. Shao Qi sighed. Although I don't want you to kill King An, it seems like you have no choice but to do it. He's so aggressive that he's trying to piss you off. Chu Li nodded slowly. King An's every move was aimed at his vital point. He was angering him and making him suffer. From King An's point of view, his martial arts had not recovered yet. Hence, he was unscrupulously attacking Chu Li to vent his anger from before. Even though he knew that Chu Li had lost his martial arts, he still sent 4 200-year-old martial arts masters. King An was becoming more cautious and wanted to be foolproof. It seemed like he had learned his lesson from his failures. He messed up his actions and enhanced his abilities. The many setbacks had made him more cunning. Chu Li suddenly frowned. Shao Qi looked at him. Chu Li said, An imperial edict has arrived from Fairy's capital. Shao Qi was puzzled. For you? More or less. Chu Li nodded slowly. Shao Qi scoffed. What is the emperor trying to do? Chu Li gritted his teeth and became even more resentful towards the emperor. The feeling of being manipulated by others was terrible. He wanted to become an enlightened master and beat the emperor until he begged for mercy. You should go to the second lady first. Chu Li frowned. Shao Qi shook her head. Let's see what the imperial edict says first. The two talked for a while before footsteps were heard from outside. 2 middle-aged men in black clothes pushed the door open and strode in. Chief Chu Li of King An's imperial residence, received the edict. Chu Li went forward and fist saluted. Chu Li received the edict. The 2 imperial house protectors in black robes looked valiant and had an intimidating aura. Their eyes were as bright as lightning as they said, Chu Li is to return to King An's imperial residence immediately and resume his duties. We hope that he will be loyal to his duty and not neglect his duties. Chu Li fist saluted. Thank you, Your Majesty. The 2 black-clothed guards from the imperial house smiled. Chief Chu, you are blessed by the emperor. Congratulations. An imperial edict was sent to the imperial mausoleum, and another one immediately summoned him back. With such a change, it was clear that the emperor cared for him and always remembered him. Chu Li gestured for them to enter the gazebo and take a seat. Shao Qi then served them tea. The 2 of them looked at Shao Qi but were not surprised by her beauty. They had seen many beauties in the imperial house, but they were curious about her identity. They knew that she was the 3rd lady of the High Duke's public house, Shao Qi, so they wanted to take a closer look at her appearance. The news of Xiao Qi marrying Chu Li had spread like wildfire in Fairy's capital. Everyone knew about it. Chu Li's status was too low, yet he married the lady. Chu Li took a sip and put down the teacup. My martial arts have been crippled. I'm useless now. Why did the emperor ask me to return? Chu Li took a sip and put down the teacup. My martial arts have been crippled. I'm useless now. Why did the emperor ask me to return? King An personally went to the imperial house to plead. One of the middle-aged imperial house protectors shook his head. The emperor didn't agree at first. After all, you've only been here for a short time. How could the emperor change his mind so quickly? However, he couldn't resist King An's pleading, so he agreed. Chu Li smiled. If that's the case, I have to thank King An. King An seems to rely on you a lot. As soon as he returned to the imperial residence, he immediately asked the emperor to transfer you back. The other middle-aged imperial house protector looked envious. I'm envious to be able to work for a royal highness who values you so much. Chu Li chuckled. I'm flattered by King An's favor. King An wanted him to go back and torture him. He wanted to settle old and new grudges together. Outsiders might not be able to see the mystery behind it, but those who could would not say anything. Protectors, do you want to travel together? Chu Li asked. The two imperial house protectors nodded and smiled. Yes, the emperor pitied your martial arts being crippled. He's worried that it won't be safe on the road, so he asked us to escort you. You just have to rush back to Fairy's capital in a month. There's no hurry. Chu Li's heart skipped a beat as he sensed something. It was Xiao Shi who had crushed her jade pendant and wanted him to hurry over. He was anxious, but he kept a straight face. I see. Thank you, Your Highness. How about this, we'll go our separate ways. You can go ahead first, I have my own guards. That won't do, Chief Chu. The two imperial house protectors shook their heads. We're under His Majesty's orders to protect you. The two imperial house protectors shook their heads. One of them said, although our martial arts aren't that strong, our identities can be used. They were the imperial house protectors who carried the emperor's orders. They represented the imperial house's prestige. If anyone dared to offend them, it would be equivalent to disrespecting the imperial house, and they would not be spared. Chu Li was anxious. He did not want to waste time with them. He stood up and said, Xiao Qi, talk to them. I'll go buy some food and wine. He did not wait for the two imperial house protectors to reply. He rushed out of the residence and left in a hurry. He suddenly disappeared. The bright sunlight shone on a sparse forest. It was late autumn and the leaves had withered. There was an open space deep in the forest. Xiao Shi was lying motionlessly on the thick and soft grass. She was dressed in a white gown and her face was covered by a white veil. Her phoenix eyes were cold as she stared at King An, who was standing with his hands behind his back. King An was dressed in a bright yellow gown. He looked as handsome as jade. His eyes were like cold stars as he smiled at Xiao Shi. There were only the two of them. It was quiet all around. What do you want? Xiao Shi asked coldly. King An chuckled. His handsome face revealed a proud smile. What do you think, my princess? Xiao Shi said. You have the face of a despicable person who becomes arrogant after achieving his goals. Arrogant after achieving his goals. Well said. Ha ha. King An laughed. Princess, you have been married to me for so long. When have you ever fulfilled your duties as a princess? Today I will get what I want. Xiao Shi frowned. Are you crazy? Haha, I originally wanted to be intimate with you in front of Chu Li to anger him to death. But princess, you are so beautiful. I can't help it. King An looked at her strangely. Xiao Shi was pushed to the ground. She laid on the thick and soft grass. Her back and buttocks revealed her amazing curve. It made King An's eyes burn with passion. Seeing his gaze, Xiao Shi said disapprovingly, in front of Chu Li, do you have the guts? He is now a cripple. Why wouldn't I dare? King An sneered. I have already pleaded with my father to summon him back. He will continue to be the chief of the imperial residence. Interesting, right? It is. You have guts. Xiao Shi said coldly. King An said, Today, princess, I will let you see if I have guts. As he said that, he got closer to Xiao Shi. He gently took off Xiao Shi's white veil and revealed her beautiful face. Xiao Shi's acupuncture point was sealed. She could not move. She could only let him take off her white veil and stare at her greedily. Chapter 2981. Seoshur furrowed her brows and looked at him coldly. Her gaze was magnanimous and sarcastic. As a royal highness, you have to rely on such methods to get a woman. What a joke! How pitiful! How pitiful! Prince Anne's expression changed slightly. His burning gaze turned cold. He felt that the sarcastic smile on her beautiful face was particularly glaring. He could not help but feel angry. Slap! He swung his palm. Seoshur flew out and rolled a few times in the air. Bang! She landed heavily on the thick and soft grass with her face facing the sky. Prince Anne laughed out loud and appeared in front of her in a flash. He squatted down and looked at her with a smile. Sigh, I've sinned. If Chu Li saw this, he would be heartbroken. Seoshur said lightly, You attacked me just to anger Chu Li? That's right. Prince Anne smiled. He did not let me have my fun. I will repay him tenfold. I know that taking care of you is more painful than taking care of him. If Chu Li saw you like this, he would be heartbroken. Seoshur's beautiful face had a red handprint. It was clearly visible. Prince Anne's slap was very skillful. Anyone who saw the clear handprint could feel how painful it was. Seoshur said, Aren't you afraid that Chu Li will come after you? He's a useless piece of trash now. Why would I be afraid of him? Prince Anne sneered. Seoshur shook her head. You're still afraid of him. If not, why would you ask the Emperor to transfer him back? I transferred him back to torture him. Prince Anne said coldly, especially when he sees you suffer. He will be in even more pain. He will want to commit suicide. It's so satisfying. Seoshur said, You're afraid that he will recover his martial arts. That's why you want to keep him under your watch. In the end, you're still afraid of him. Heh. Prince Anne sneered and shook his head. Princess, you're very smart. Unfortunately, smart people don't live long. Seoshur said lightly, Do you still dare to kill me? I've changed my mind, Princess. Prince Anne's sneer turned into a smile. He looked her up and down. His eyes lingered on her proudly bulging breast. His gaze became passionate and greedy once again. Let's first consummate our marriage, then kill you. Don't you think Chu Li would go crazy? He will definitely hate himself. Wang Fei, you died because of him. If it wasn't for him, Wang Fei would not have died. If it wasn't for him, I would have died a long time ago, Seoshur said lightly. If he hadn't offended me, I wouldn't have killed you. Prince Anne smiled and said, I will tell him that it was I who killed you, Princess. He will hate himself for being powerless and suffering in pain every day. Haha, this is great. This feels great. You really are despicable. Seoshur said faintly, but he will still cripple you in the end. The current me is not the previous me. Prince Anne shook his head and smiled. It's not him who crippled me now, it's me who crippled him. When he arrives at the imperial residence, I'll cripple him every few days so that he'll never be able to turn over a new leaf. I'll make him live in pain for the rest of his life. As he spoke, he slowly reached out his large hand and was about to touch her ample breast. Seoshur stared at him without flinching. Prince Anne's hand slowly approached, and was about to touch it. Bam! Prince Anne suddenly flew out and crashed into a peach tree beside him. The peach tree immediately shed its leaves. He slowly slid down from the tree and onto the ground. His entire body could not move. A violent force was ravaging and devouring his body, trying to devour all of his cultivation. His internal organs were all severely injured. Wah! He spat out a mouthful of blood and looked at Chu Li in shock. Chu Li appeared at his previous position and lightly patted Seoshur's body twice. He unsealed her acupuncture point and said softly, Second lady, are you all right? Seoshur shook her head. Chu Li said apologetically, I'm late. Seoshur said, You're not late. Chu Li gently touched her face. A warm breath wandered around her cheeks. After a while, he let go of his hand. Xiao Shi's face was no longer red and swollen. She was no longer in pain. Be careful! Xiao Shi suddenly shouted. Prince An swung his hand and shot out a bolt of lightning towards Chu Li's back. Chu Li bent his finger and flicked it behind him. Ding! A flying knife fell to the ground with a clear sound. Chu Li could not help but laugh. Prince An was playing with flying blades in front of him. Prince An threw the flying blade. He did not care if it hit its target or not. He flipped over and darted into the depths of the forest. Chu Li suddenly appeared in front of Prince An and slammed his palm on his chest. Bam! Prince An flew out again and crashed into a tree. He slid down and spat out another mouthful of blood. Chu Li went forward and grabbed his collar. In a flash, he appeared in front of Xiao Shi. Prince An's expression did not change. He said in a low voice, "Isn't your martial arts crippled?" Chu Li scoffed coldly. "Can't my martial arts recover? If your Royal Highness can recover, why can't I?" As he spoke, he waved his hand and gave Prince An a slap. Pa pa pa, he slapped Prince An's face a few more times. It was clean and crisp. Prince An's handsome face quickly turned red and swollen. Chu Li slapped him a dozen more times until Prince An's face was swollen. He then stopped and turned to look at Xiao Shi. "My lady, what do you think?" Xiao Shi frowned and looked at Prince An. "Cripple his martial arts." Prince An was shocked and anxious. A woman's heart was the most vicious. What a vicious woman! There's no rush. Chu Li shook his head. Prince An sighed in relief. He could not understand. His martial arts had obviously improved and he could easily crush Chu Li. Moreover, Chu Li's martial arts was crippled. Why did this happen? Why was he suppressed by Chu Li again? Chu Li's martial arts had improved to a terrifying level. Even if he was better than before, he was still no match for him. His confidence had been completely shattered by these few slaps. All that was left was boundless anger and murderous intent. This Chu Li was his nemesis. He was born to go against him. If he did not kill him, he would rather die than live. Chu Li tossed him aside. Get lost! King An flew far away as if he was riding on a cloud, and finally landed on a tree fork. The tree fork was light and thin, and it slowly bent downwards. He was shocked, but his internal organs were injured, and his inner energy could not be channeled properly. Bam! He finally fell to the ground with a dull thud. His internal organs seemed to tumble again. He spat out another mouthful of blood. This time, he felt more relaxed. He turned around and left. He was afraid that Chu Li would change his mind and cripple his martial arts again. He endured the pain and ran away. Xiao Shi was puzzled. Why did you let him go? Chu Li said, "There's no rush." You want to kill him? Xiao Shi frowned. She was smart. Logically speaking, Chu Li should be torturing Prince An and crippling his martial arts. He might even cripple his arms or legs. Letting him go so easily was not Chu Li's style. The only explanation was that he was determined to kill Prince An. Chu Li nodded lightly. Xiao Shi said, "If you want to kill him, then just do it. What are you hesitating for?" "It's not the right time yet." Chu Li shook his head. If he killed Prince An now, the Emperor would arrive in an instant. Xiao Shi would be dragged into this. This was something he would never allow and had been avoiding. Chapter 2982. Xiao Shi stood up and stretched her body. Chu Li said, "Follow me back first. I still need to go to Fairy's capital with everyone." Xiao Shi shook her head. Chu Li frowned. He used the omniscient mirror to observe and noticed Su Ru and a few protectors. Su Ru and the protectors in the residence were slightly injured, but they were fine. It was obvious that King An's light body technique was superb. He snatched her over and did not fight too much with Su Ru and the others. Let them go by themselves. Chu Li scoffed. Forget it. Seo sure shook her head. You can't even protect yourself over there, right? She understood King An's tactics. Once he made a move, he would definitely make a move at the same time. He wanted to crush Chu Li with an overwhelming force. He would not do it bit by bit. King An wanted to destroy Chu Li in one go. Moreover, King An had said that the Emperor had ordered Chu Li to return to Fairy's capital. The protector must have arrived at adjacent town. Chu Li said, Shao Qi will be worried if you don't go. Oh. Seo sure smiled. Chu Li smiled. You two can accompany each other. All right. Seo sure nodded. How is she now? Not bad, Chu Li said. Shao sure said, All right, let's go. Chu Li disappeared with her and appeared next to Su Ru. He asked Su Ru to go out and give her some instructions. Then, he brought Su Ru back to adjacent town. He brought them to his residence. The two Imperial House protectors looked at them in surprise. Seo Sure and Su Ru's faces were covered with white veils, so their faces could not be seen. However, judging from their graceful figures and temperament, they knew that they were rare beauties. The two Imperial House protectors stared at them. Second eldest sister? Shao Qi was surprised. What a coincidence. Second lady and the others are here to visit. Chu Li smiled. Shao Qi glanced at Chu Li. She knew that he would not go out for no reason. It was obvious that second eldest sister and the others were in danger and had just been rescued. Have some tea first. I have something to talk to second eldest sister about. Shao Qi brought Seo Sure and Su Ru into the house and closed the door. Chu Li took a sip of tea and smiled at the two Imperial House protectors. It's not that I don't want you two to accompany me. I'm just a little worried and I'm not sure if I should say it. Chief Chu, please speak your mind. I have too many enemies. Once I leave adjacent town and return to Fairy's capital, those people won't just stand by and watch. Too many people don't want me to return to Fairy's capital, Chu Li muttered. The two Imperial House guards frowned and nodded slowly. Of course, they knew that Chu Li was in the limelight and that he was cruel and merciless. They did not know how many martial arts masters he had offended. If it were not for his outstanding martial arts, he would have died many times over. Now that he had lost his martial arts, no one would let go of this opportunity. They must seize the opportunity to kill him. Forget about the other forces, just the Holy Church of Light alone would definitely think of ways to kill him. Moreover, there were also some enemies of the High Duke's public house. The people he had provoked were all masters. Chu Li said, It's too dangerous for you to follow me. I'm afraid that both of you will be implicated. If you lose your life, I really don't know how to explain it to the Emperor. So for the sake of both of us, it's better for us to separate. But Chief Chu, we have to protect you. Hee. Chu Li laughed and shook his head. To be honest, although your martial arts are strong, compared to my enemies, you're still lacking. Moreover, those people are lawless. They don't care about the dignity of the imperial family at all. They don't care about the Holy Church of Light. The two Imperial House guards frowned. The disciples of the Holy Church of Light were famous for being reckless. Not to mention them, they would even kill the royal highnesses and crown princes. Indeed, the two of them would not be enough to kill them. It was better for them to stay far away. However, when they thought about the Emperor's orders, they dared not disobey. Chu Li said, Let's do this. Didn't the Emperor want me to arrive in 30 days? We'll meet at Qing Yun Town and enter Fairy's capital on the last day. Will this work? The two Imperial House guards hesitated. Chu Li smiled. I'm somewhat confident that my protectors will protect me. However, with the two of you, we'll be in a dangerous situation. If you don't say anything, how will the Emperor know if you're following us? Even if the Emperor asks, we can say that we were assassinated and got separated. All right. Thank you, Chief Chu. The two closed fist saluted. Chu Li closed fist saluted and smiled. It's convenient for others and convenient for ourselves. We'll take care of each other. Yes. The two were grateful. They closed-fist saluted and left. Chu Li sent them to the entrance of the residence, and returned to the main hall. The three women were chatting when Xiao Shi mentioned King An's evil deeds. Xiao Qi was so angry that her face tightened. Her hand would occasionally touch the hilt of her sword. Chu Li sat on the bed and channeled to stabilize his cultivation level. He had benefited a lot from his trip to the inner mausoleum. His cultivation level had deepened by 2 levels. Now it was more than enough to deal with a 300-year-old master. He could be said to be proud of anyone below the enlightened master. Although he was not invincible, there were few who could match him. However, compared to his cultivation level, he had gained a lot more in terms of his soul. His soul was strengthened, his spirit was clear, and he could channel his inner energy faster. Moreover, the strengthening of the 4 meridians also strengthened his body. Just by relying on his body and not inner energy, he was outstanding among grandmasters. The biggest gain was the heavenly demonic power. He had advanced by leaps and bounds on the last level. If he could perfect the heavenly demonic power, he could become an enlightened master. Unfortunately, he dared not cultivate any further or he would directly ascend to heaven. What he wanted to do was to defy nature and become an enlightened master. He wanted to perfect the spirit beast technique. After going to bed with Xiao Qi, he inexplicably had a deeper understanding of the Earth Matrix and reincarnation scripture. Xiao Qi's cultivation level also improved. Initially, Xiao Qi could not lose her virginity because of the regal sword scripture. At that time, he could not care less. Moreover, he had the miracle cure pill. He did not expect to suddenly understand the Earth Matrix and reincarnation scripture when he was in paradise. The regal sword scripture's cultivation level originally flowed to his body, but it was reversed by the Earth Matrix and reincarnation scripture and returned to her body. After being filtered by Chu Li's body, it became purer, making her cultivation level much higher than before. The Earth Matrix and reincarnation scripture's mysteriousness was far beyond imagination, but to understand it required opportunity. It was not something that could be achieved by constantly thinking about it. Knock, knock, knock. Someone knocked on the door. Chu Li raised his voice. Come in. Xiao Qi and Xiao Shi entered his bedroom one after another. They took a garden stool and sat in front of his bed. Under the light, the 2 women looked like they were carved from white jade. They were crystal clear and glowed brilliantly. Chu Li, since your martial art is better than King An's, there's no need for you to risk your life against him. You don't have to kill him. It's fine as long as you can suppress him so that he won't dare to act recklessly, Xiao Shi said. She previously thought that King An's martial art had improved greatly and that he was confident of winning, which was why he dared to act recklessly. Now that Chu Li's martial art had improved as well and he had suppressed King An would have to behave himself when he returned. Xiao Qi nodded. Chu Li said, I'll kill King An no matter what. Second lady, you don't have to say anything. Why? Xiao Shi frowned. Chu Li shook his head and smiled. Chapter 2983. I just heard that you and little sister have really become husband and wife. Xiao Shi furrowed her brows and glared at him in dissatisfaction. Don't tell me you want her to become a widow as soon as she gets married? Chu Li shook his head and laughed. I'm confident that I won't die. Stop boasting. Xiao Shi pouted her red lips. In today's world, who dares to say that they can escape the pursuit of an enlightened master? I've put in so much effort to prepare so that I can fight for a chance of survival. Chu Li nodded confidently. I've been attacked by an enlightened master before, so I know how to defend myself. Don't worry, I'm also someone who cherishes my life, and I can't bear to lose her. You're a bastard! Xiao Shi scoffed. How dare you make little sis so worried? Chu Li glanced at Xiao Qi. Xiao Qi stared at him. Chu Li sighed. We'll have to kill King An sooner or later. We'll kill King An when the Emperor doesn't suspect anything. That way we won't be able to get rid of him in the future, which will bring us endless trouble. When the time comes for us to go against the Emperor, who knows how many people will die?" Xiao Shi frowned and remained silent. She knew that what Chu Li said made sense, but no one could predict what would happen in the future. For all she knew, King An might not even need Chu Li to kill him. He might even harm himself. Judging from his current state, there must be something wrong with him. He was like a balloon that could burst at any time. Chu Li could tell what she was thinking and said, "I won't pin my hopes on others. If I can solve it myself, then I will." Sigh. Xiao Shi sighed and shook her head helplessly at Shao Qi. Shao Qi asked, "When are you going to make your move?" "We'll make our move tomorrow," Chu Li said. "All of you should return to the public house first." "All right," Xiao Qi said. The night was hazy. Prince An sat in his study room, his face as gloomy as water. The study room was brightly lit, but it was so quiet that even a pin drop could be heard. Jing Lide's voice could be heard from outside. "Your Highness, 2 guards from the Imperial House are here to see you. Invite him in quickly." King An stood up immediately. Jing Lide said, "Yes." Prince An stood up to welcome him. 2 elders with white eyebrows and beards, one fat and one skinny, had already entered. They closed fist saluted. "Greetings, Your Royal Highness." "Seniors, you don't have to be so polite," King An hurriedly said. The 2 of them cupped their fists casually. Prince An extended his hand in invitation. The fat old man chuckled and said, "We have come under the Emperor's orders to serve as Your Highness' personal guards." "Thank you, seniors." Prince An's smile was so warm that it felt like a spring breeze. "I'll leave my safety in your hands." "Don't worry, Your Highness," the thin old man replied in a muffled voice. The fat old man smiled and said, "Does His Highness have an enemy, so he called us over?" They were the internal guards of the Imperial House, the top-notch experts that almost never left the Imperial House. With more than 300 years of cultivation, they rarely had a worthy opponent below the enlightened master level. They were originally inner mausoleum protectors and were free and unfettered in the Imperial House. The Emperor was an enlightened master. They only had to protect the Empress and the concubines. Those powerhouses who broke into the Imperial House to assassinate the Emperor would not bother to assassinate the Empress and the Imperial concubines. Coming to King An's imperial residence was considered a tough job as it disturbed their cultivation. However, they couldn't refuse the Emperor's orders. Prince An forced a smile. "I'm not really an enemy. I just feel uneasy, so I asked the 2 of you to come over and calm me down." He didn't want to say that Chu Li was his enemy. Otherwise, his incompetence would spread all over the world, and he would no longer have a chance to fight for the throne. "Don't worry, Your Highness. We'll protect you from the side." The fat old man smiled. "Thank you, seniors." Prince An solemnly closed fist saluted. Only then did he let out a sigh of relief and finally calmed down. Ever since he met Chu Li, he had been worried. He could feel Chu Li's killing intent. Chu Li could have crippled his martial arts, but he didn't do it. Such an unusual action showed that he really wanted to kill him. As a prince, if Prince An wanted to kill him, he would have to bear the wrath of the Emperor. However, it seemed like Chu Li was planning to die together with him and drag him to hell. With this worry, he asked the Emperor for help and hired 2 internal guards of the Imperial House as protectors. The Emperor readily agreed to this request. Because the internal guards of the Imperial House were only loyal to the Emperor, they would report every move of the prince they were protecting. Therefore, the princes rarely hired the internal guards of the Imperial House. If Prince An wasn't worried, he wouldn't have hired these 2 guards. With these 2 guards, he could finally have a good night's sleep. He returned to his bedroom and fell asleep. Suddenly, he felt something strange. When he opened his eyes, he realized that he wasn't in his bedroom anymore. Instead, he was at the top of a mountain. A bright moon hung in the sky, its moonlight like water. A handsome young man stood in front of him, smiling at him. "You!" Prince An opened his mouth. With a flash of a blade, his vision went black. His head flew up and blood spurted out like a fountain. Chu Li transformed into Du Feng and appeared in Prince An's imperial residence. Because Prince An had a rare treasure that could suppress divine powers, he couldn't use the all-seeing divine technique or God's limbs. His Mahavairokkana's immobility scripture could break through the suppression of these rare treasures. However, it could only break through the suppression of the rare treasures around him. It couldn't break through the other side that was far away. After he appeared in Prince An's imperial residence, the rare treasures around Prince An lost their effects. He could use divine powers freely. He instantly appeared beside Prince An and pulled him away. When he reappeared on a towering mountain in the Li dynasty, he beheaded Prince An. The two imperial house internal guards couldn't react in time. They didn't expect divine powers to appear under the suppression of a rare treasure. By the time they realized it, Prince An was already gone. After Chu Li beheaded him, he activated God's limbs and was about to leave. "Damn it!" An angry roar seemed to come from a faraway void. It sounded like rolling thunder. At first, it sounded very far away, but in an instant it resounded in the world. A vast and boundless energy descended from the sky and froze him. The space around him was locked, and he couldn't move at all. Chu Li activated his heavenly demonic power to its limit and activated the heavenly demonic spirit devouring technique. A figure suddenly appeared in front of him. A hand was already at his chest. It was too fast for him to react. Bang! The heavenly demonic orb instantly appeared in front of Chu Li's chest to devour the palm energy. At the same time, he struck his opponent's chest with his palm. He had used the enlightened master's energy that had been devoured by the heavenly demonic spirit devouring technique. Bang! Both of them flew backward at the same time. He flew straight out of the mountain and flew in the air before he landed in the dense evergreen pine forest. His vision darkened as if he was about to disappear from the world and turn into ashes. From the corner of his eye, he noticed that the emperor had been sent flying as well. The Buddha and the heavenly demon in the void of his mind chanted with all their might. The halo behind the Buddha's head shone brightly. The Mahavairokkana's immobility scripture moved at an unprecedented speed to resist this destructive will. With the help of the Mahavairokkana's immobility scripture, the force that bound him loosened. He disappeared in a flash and appeared in the Fu dynasty's Jian'an city. When he suddenly appeared in a small courtyard in Jian'an city, he immediately lay prone in the courtyard and vomited blood. Not only did he vomit blood, but he also vomited chunks of flesh. His internal organs were shattered. The heavenly demonic orb failed to devour the enlightened master's energy. Instead, it was crushed by the enlightened master's energy. His internal organs were also shattered. Chapter 2984. He was very familiar with this feeling as he had experienced it too many times in the inner mausoleum. This was the power of an enlightened master. It was obvious that an enlightened master was approaching. The omniscient mirror could observe 100 miles away. He clearly saw the emperor and an elder with white eyebrows and beard exchanging blows in the sky. Both of them retreated and disappeared into the sky. There was no earth-shattering power in this blow. There was not even an overflow of power. It was as if two people who did not know martial arts had exchanged blows. The suffocating power from before had disappeared. It was as if nothing had happened, and the scene just now was like an illusion to him. He let out a long sigh of relief. Fortunately, the Fu dynasty's emperor reacted quickly and was resolute. Otherwise, if he had been one step slower and the emperor had followed up with another blow, he would have been dead for sure. He would have been shattered into pieces and the life and death scripture would not have been able to revive him. He disappeared on the spot in a flash and appeared in another house. He did not want to be targeted by the emperor or the Fu dynasty's emperor. In their eyes, he was just an ant that could be trampled to death at any time. This feeling made him angry, and it was also one of the motivations for him to become an enlightened master. He lay prone in the gazebo of this residence and continued to vomit blood, which was mixed with pieces of flesh. His heart palpitated as he vomited blood. The scene earlier was too dangerous, and he almost did not make it back. If it were not for the enlightened master's energy devoured by the heavenly demonic spirit devouring technique, his palm would not have hit the emperor at all. Even if it had hit, it would only have tickled the emperor. It would not have been able to break the emperor's seal of space and escape. He would have died without a doubt. The power of an enlightened master was truly terrifying. Activating the life and death scripture, spiritual chi surged from all directions and healed his heavy injuries. Even though he was on the brink of death, he still had a breath left to hold on. He took out a jade bottle from his bosom and poured all the medicinal pills in it into his mouth. The spiritual energy around him was surging. In addition, the spiritual energy from the spirit pills was circulating around his internal organs and continuously healing them. No matter how serious his injuries were, he could still withstand it. However, the enlightened master's energy was like a knife. It was extremely solid and sharp, constantly cutting at his internal organs. Its destructive power far surpassed the healing of the spiritual energy and spirit pills. His body was rapidly deteriorating. He should have used the heavenly demonic spirit devouring technique to devour the enlightened master's energy. Unfortunately, the heavenly demonic orb was shattered by the enlightened master's energy, so he could not activate the heavenly demonic spirit devouring technique. He could only watch the enlightened master's energy wreak havoc. The Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture tried its best to transform the enlightened master's energy. It had just reversed the flow of energy, turning death into life, turning destruction into restoration, but it immediately reverted back to normal. The enlightened master's energy seemed to have its own consciousness. It was a pure will. Chu Li smiled bitterly. This was the power of an enlightened master's attack. He would not be able to survive if he took it head-on. He could only watch helplessly as his body deteriorated towards death. At this rate, he would die in less than 15 minutes. His mind spun rapidly. He was unwilling to resign himself to death like this. Suddenly, he had a flash of inspiration. He reversed the Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture. He ignored the Empyrean deity's energy and focused on his body. The reverse circulation of the Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture did not heal his body. Instead, it destroyed his body along with the enlightened master's energy. The rate at which his body deteriorated increased abruptly. Within 10 minutes, his life was in danger. He began to circulate the Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture in reverse. A strange life force appeared and rapidly healed his organs. He ignored the enlightened master's energy and continued to damage his internal organs. He ignored the enlightened master's energy and continued to cultivate the Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture. As his vitality kept surging, a heavenly demonic orb, smaller than a speck of dust, suddenly appeared above his precordium. It quickly spread to his whole body, and the heavenly demonic field appeared again. He was overjoyed. The heavenly demonic spirit devouring technique started to devour the enlightened master's energy. The enlightened master's energy was slowly devoured by the heavenly demonic spirit devouring technique. The damage to his internal organs was gradually weakened. The spiritual energy around him and the spirit pills were desperately healing his internal organs. As the enlightened master's energy weakened, the spiritual energy gained the upper hand. Finally, the enlightened master's energy was completely devoured and the spiritual energy kept healing his internal organs. He let out a long sigh of relief. He had finally saved his life. The next morning, he was completely healed. He did not seem to be injured. He was not the one who was dying yesterday. The difference between his two states was like heaven and earth. He sat in the courtyard with a frown and buried the blood in the courtyard. He frowned as he racked his brains. After he had fully recovered, he noticed that a faintly discernible aura was lingering in the void of his mind. It was as if it was a gust of wind in the night sky. If it wasn't for the fact that his soul was shockingly strong, it would have been very difficult for him to notice this aura. He thought about it and concluded that this aura was left behind by the enlightened master's energy. It was the Emperor's mark. As soon as he left the Fu dynasty, the Emperor would be able to find him using this mark. No matter how he changed into, the Emperor would find him and kill him. If his soul was not strong enough to detect this aura, he would have been dead by now. He thought of many ways. He used the omniscient mirror to suppress it and the Buddha and the heavenly demon to capture it. However, he could not do anything about this aura. It was like wind, fog, and smoke. It was elusive and impossible to capture. In the end, he had no choice but to use his last resort. He transformed into serene and went to heavenly demonic sect. He glided to heavenly demonic sect and went straight to the basilica. He raised his voice and said, "Disciple Zhe-ing greets Honorable Masterly." "Zhe-ing?" A deep voice came from inside. Chu-Li pushed the door open and entered the basilica. He gave a fist salute. "Greetings, Honorable Masterly. You actually left Ill Wind Valley?" Elderly looked at him with a serious expression. He knew what kind of place Ill Wind Valley was. It was a place with a slim chance of survival. It was surprising that Zhe-ing was able to leave. "Yes," Chu-Li replied. Elderly asked, "Since you left Ill Wind Valley, why did you come back?" Chu-Li said, "I want to meet the 4 honorable masters." "Humph," Elderly said impatiently, "you're here to provoke us on purpose, aren't you?" Be ****starred. Chu-Li smiled but did not say anything. Elderly looked at him and frowned. "You've cultivated the heavenly demonic power to the 9th level?" "Yes." Chu-Li nodded. "There's nothing to be happy about cultivating like this." Elderly scoffed. "Do you still want to stay in heavenly demonic sect?" "Of course." Chu-Li said, "The sect leader once said that as long as I leave Ill Wind Valley, everything will be written off. I'll still be a disciple of heavenly demonic sect." "If that's the case, go back and rest," Elderly said. Chu-Li responded and suddenly took a step back. It was as if he had accidentally bumped into the heavenly demon statue. Bam! He was sent flying and immediately fell unconscious. Elderly was stunned. He quickly called for someone to help Chu-Li back to his house. When Chu-Li slowly woke up, he realized that the sky was bright outside. He looked at the shadow on the window and knew that it was noon. He had a splitting headache and could not use the omniscient mirror. The void of his mind was heavily damaged again. He had used a method that would cause both sides to suffer. He did not know if this heavy injury would erase the Emperor's imprint. If it could not be erased, then he could only challenge an enlightened master and use that enlightened master to deal with the Emperor's imprint. There might be a glimmer of hope. Otherwise, he could not return to the Ji dynasty and could only stay here. Chapter 2986. Footsteps were heard as Fu Qingya walked in slowly and looked at him. Chu-Li sat on the bed and gave a fist salute. "Sect leader." Fu Qingya sized him up and shook his head. "I didn't expect you to be able to reach this state. This is definitely not a state that the heavenly demonic spirit devouring technique can achieve. Did you have a fortuitous encounter?" "Yes." Chu-Li nodded. "I exchanged blows with an enlightened master." "An enlightened master?" Fu Qingya frowned at him. "What's going on?" Chu-Li shook his head. "I transformed into another person and entered the Ji dynasty's Imperial Mausoleum's inner mausoleum. I absorbed the enlightened master's energy and reached this state. How dare you? Fu Qingya said in a deep voice. He sighed to himself. Zheng has really gone mad. He's willing to do anything in order to improve his strength. He treats his own life like child's play. He's ruthless to others, but even more ruthless to himself. How terrifying! Only such a state of chi deviation could allow him to reach such a realm in such a short period of time. The inner mausoleum of the Imperial Mausoleum was the most heavily guarded place in the world. Everyone who could enter the inner mausoleum was the most reliable person. There would not be any problems, and even if there were problems, it would be difficult for them to escape with their lives. The fact that Zheng was able to use the heavenly demonic power to enter the inner mausoleum was considered an extremely impressive feat among the heavenly demonic sect's disciples in the past generations. If word of this got out, it would be enough to spread his name all over the world and make people even more fearful of the heavenly demonic sect. The heavenly demonic sect's disciples could really be everywhere. Chu Li said, I realize that even if I reach this state, it's impossible to perfect it. Maybe the heavenly demon statue has the answer, so I came back to take a look. The heavenly demon statue absolutely cannot be touched. It is an object used to restrain the heavenly god. Fu Qingya shook his head and said, with your cultivation level, you're no different from an ant in front of a heavenly demon god. How dare you set your sights on it? You're courting death. Yes. Chu Li smiled bitterly and helplessly. Now you know how powerful I am. My head is splitting. Sect leader, do you have the heavenly demonic stone? I'll get someone to send it over later. Fu Qingya frowned and said, the heavenly demonic stone sect is getting rarer. Use it carefully and don't lose it. Yes. Chu Li smiled. Fu Qingya muttered, Zheng, are you angry that the disciples of heavenly demonic sect can't walk openly in the world? Chu Li was stunned. He slowly nodded and smiled. It's also related to our heavenly demonic power. The world is still too afraid of our heavenly demonic power. It's ever-changing and impossible to guard against. Everyone will be on guard against it. The heavenly demonic power isn't the key. Fu Qingya shook his head. The key is that heavenly demonic sect has yet to produce an enlightened master. Chu Li asked, the founder wasn't an enlightened master. Fu Qingya shook his head slowly. Chu Li asked, sect leader wants to become an enlightened master? Of course, Fu Qingya answered. Chu Li shook his head. Since the founder of the sect couldn't achieve it, I'm afraid there's something wrong with the heavenly demonic power itself. I think so too. Fu Qingya frowned and said, our realms are about the same now. You'll use your cultivation technique, while I'll use mine. Let's see if we can perfect it and become an enlightened master. Chu Li said, sect leader, as far as I know, the best way to become an enlightened master is to cultivate the spirit beast heart technique. That's even more difficult. Fu Qingya sneered. It's only a legend. Which spirit beast heart technique should I cultivate to become an enlightened master? Chu Li asked. Fu Qingya glanced at him and asked, why? Do you want to cultivate the spirit beast heart technique? Chu Li nodded. If I know which heart technique, I'll secretly learn it. I'm sure it'll be easier for me to become an enlightened master than the heavenly demonic power. There's no harm in telling you, Fu Qingya said, to become an enlightened master, you'll need 4 spirit beast heart techniques. The azure dragon, white tiger, black tortoise, and vermilion bird. As long as you fit these 4 heart techniques, you'll be able to become an enlightened master. Azure dragon and white tiger, Chu Li frowned. Which sex heart technique is this? Fu Qingya explained. The Azure Dragon Heart technique is the dragon taming technique of Goddess Attraction Mountain. As for the other 3 heart techniques, it doesn't have to be any one of them. As long as the element is similar, it'll be fine. The black tortoise has the earth element, the white tiger has the metal element, and the vermilion bird has the fire element. As long as the spirit beast heart technique matches these, it'll be fine. Chu Li nodded. Fu Qingyao scoffed and said, these spirit beast heart techniques require a complete inheritance, and there won't be any mistakes in cultivating them to perfection. Not every sect has them, so it's very difficult to obtain them. Chu Li smiled. Is it difficult for heavenly demonic sect's disciples? Don't think that the heavenly demonic power is omnipotent. It's best if you don't get into big trouble, Fu Qingyao said coldly. Chu Li replied, don't worry, sect leader. At that moment, his expression changed. Bang! The entire ground shook as if there was an earthquake. Fu Qingyao's expression changed. He disappeared in a flash and reappeared in front of the heavenly demon statue. He shouted, activate the heavenly demon statue. Yes, Elder Bai and the other 3 elders responded. The 5 of them placed their hands on the heavenly demon statue's 4 limbs and its forehead. Chu Li used the heavenly demonic power to appear in the basilica. Unfortunately, he could not use the omniscient mirror, so he could only see the heavenly demon statue's eyes sparkling as if it had come to life. Then, the statue's head began to turn as if it was looking at the sky through the basilica. 2 white beams of light suddenly shot out of its eyes. They were flawless and extremely pure beams of light. 2 holes silently appeared at the top of the basilica as if they had been melted by the white light. Bang! An explosion was heard in the sky, followed by a furious roar. Heavenly demonic sect. Chu Li smiled when he heard that it was the Ji dynasty's emperor, Leng Wufeng's voice. It seemed like his trick of diverting the trouble had worked. With that, he had finally gotten rid of the Snow Lunar Pavilion's trouble, and the Ji dynasty's emperor had his eyes on heavenly demonic sect. The enlightened master's mighty aura surged like waves. It was as if the entire heavenly demonic sect had fallen into a raging sea. An invisible force was pressing on every disciple as if it was going to crush them. Fu Qingyao and the other 4 elders looked gloomy as white steam rose from the top of their heads. The heavenly demon statue turned its head again to look at the sky. 2 more white beams of light shot out of its eyes. Wherever the white light passed, everything that was in its way would disappear without a trace. Bang! An explosion was heard from afar. The monstrous enlightened master's mighty aura suddenly retracted and disappeared without a trace. Chu Li let out a long sigh of relief. It seemed like Leng Wufeng had finally left and could not do anything to heavenly demonic sect. The heavenly demon statue was indeed powerful. The light that shot out of its eyes made his heart palpitate, and his instincts were warning him to stay away. It seemed like even an enlightened master could not withstand the heavenly demon statue's gaze. It was truly terrifying. He stared fervently at the heavenly demon statue. The 5 of them looked as if they had just been fished out of water. They let go of the statue while panting heavily and glared at Chu Li. Fu Qingyao asked, Zheng, you lured it here, didn't you? Chu Li replied sheepishly, I clearly got rid of it. Why did it come back? How did you offend an enlightened master? Fu Qingyao's face darkened. If it were not for the formation and the heavenly demon statue, heavenly demonic sect would have been wiped out this time. This was a huge disaster. Chu Li replied, I disguised myself as Du Feng and went to the Ji dynasty to have fun. Then, I conveniently killed a prince. The emperor has so many sons, so it's not a big deal for one of them to die, right? You killed a prince? Fu Qingyao asked. Chapter 2987. Chu Li replied, I killed him. You. Elder Du pointed at him as his baby-like face turned even redder. Do you know what you're doing? Chu Li scoffed. That guy deserves to die, he deserves to die. Do you know that he's the son of an enlightened master? How could an enlightened master not do anything when his son is dead? Elder Du yelled. Are you crazy? How dare you provoke an enlightened master? Chu Li grinned. Honorable Master Du, I'm fine now, aren't I? You're fine because the heavenly demon statue stopped him, Elderly said coldly. But can you stay in heavenly demonic sect forever? It's fine if I go out. He doesn't know me anyway. Chuli laughed. Elder Du said impatiently, Aren't you smart? Why don't you think about how he found this place? Chuli frowned. Maybe I have something that he can track down? Something like the soul-chasing incense? An enlightened master's tricks are unfathomable. Catching you is a piece of cake. You'll definitely die. Fu Qingya said, If you want to live, stay in heavenly demonic sect and leave after a year. Chuli laughed. An enlightened master is indeed powerful, but our heavenly demon statue is even more powerful. What's so special about it? The heavenly demon statue's special isn't something you can understand, Fu Qingya said. Fu Qingya said, But you can't fathom how powerful an enlightened master is, so you should just hide in the sect. Chuli asked, Didn't he get chased away? He only retreated temporarily. He doesn't dare to enter heavenly demonic sect, but he might be waiting for you outside. Once he leaves, he'll definitely kill you. He must avenge his son. Fu Qingya shook his head. You're really reckless. You think that you're so powerful that you don't know your limits. Chuli chuckled. Leave. Fu Qingya said impatiently. I'll send you the heavenly demonic stone later. Chuli fist saluted and left. After he left, Elder Bai sighed. This young man is getting more and more troublesome. He had mixed feelings. Provoking an enlightened master required a certain level of confidence, and being able to escape from an enlightened master was something to be proud of. Fortunately, we have the sky demon statue. The other three elders shook their heads and smiled bitterly. Fu Qingya said, I'll be guarding the basilica for a while to prevent the enlightened masters from returning. You'll come again? Fu Qingya replied, He's probably injured, so he won't be fighting again for the time being. That's good. The four grand elders sighed in relief. The activation of the heavenly demon statue was not that easy. Every time it was activated, it would take 2 days for it to recover. If the heavenly god came again, they might not be able to hold on. This is very troublesome. Fu Qingya frowned. This bastard brat, he's finally in big trouble. Elder Bai snorted. Fu Qingya said, It's too late to say anything now. Let's think about how we can solve this. Fortunately, we're offending the great Ji dynasty's emperor, but this will also shock the other countries. They'll be even more wary of heavenly demonic sect's disciples. AI. The four grand elders sighed helplessly. The disciples of the heavenly demon sect were already afraid of them. Now, the situation had worsened. Fu Qingya said, But this is both a bad and a good thing. They'll be even more wary of heavenly demonic sect. They won't dare to harm heavenly demonic sect's disciples because they're afraid that they'll seek revenge. That's true. Elder Du laughed. This brat has done too much. It's scary. If he's safe and sound, heavenly demonic sect's reputation will be fully established. Fu Qingya said, Even the 8 major sects won't dare to act recklessly. Even if heavenly demonic sect can't join the 8 major sects, we'll still be on par with them. The 4 grand elders smiled and nodded. Heavenly demonic sect's strength would make them worry and be wary of heavenly demonic sect if they could escape and protect themselves after provoking an enlightened master. In the martial arts world, the strong were respected. Humility and keeping a low profile were the most useful. Fu Qingya waved his hand and left. Just as Chuli returned to his room, Fu Qingya brought him a palm-sized heavenly demonic stone. Chuli curled his lips and did not say much. It seemed that heavenly demonic sect did not have many heavenly demonic stones. Even the sect leader was so stingy. As soon as the heavenly demonic stone was placed on the back of his head, a cool air soon entered his mind. He was becoming more familiar with the heavenly demonic stone's cool air. The next morning, when he opened his eyes, the void in his mind appeared again. The heavenly demonic stone had healed the injury on his soul until it was almost healed. The Buddha and the heavenly demon in the void in his mind also had healing effect. Through the glowing lotuses, Chu Li's soul was strengthened and recovered to its original state. He used the omniscient mirror to observe the heavenly demon statue again and felt regretful that he did not get to see the battle with the enlightened master. If he could see it clearly, he might be able to understand some of the wonders of the heavenly demon statue. What delighted him the most was that, after this attack, the heavenly demon statue dispersed the enlightened master's energy in the void of his mind, as he had expected. The imprint left behind by Leng Wufeng had also disappeared. He put the heavenly demonic stone down but did not take it with him. Then, he suddenly disappeared and reappeared on a mountaintop in the Li dynasty. He sat there quietly to see if Leng Wufeng could find him and if the imprint had really disappeared. After a long while, Leng Wufeng still did not show up. If there was really an imprint, Leng Wufeng would have been here long ago. Chu Li had learned that enlightened masters also had abilities that were similar to divine powers. For example, when he cultivated the heavenly demonic power to his current level, he had an ability that was similar to God's limbs. Although it was not as far away as God's limbs, it was more agile. God's limbs and the heavenly demonic power complemented each other perfectly. Chu Li was completely relieved, so he prepared to return to the fairies' capital of the Great Ji dynasty and settle in King An's imperial residence. Without King An's imperial residence would naturally be run by consort Xiao Shi. This would greatly benefit the High Duke's public house, as the imperial residence and the High Duke's public house would be more powerful if they worked together. However, since there was only one mistress in the imperial residence, Leng Wufeng would not be too afraid of her. The High Duke's public house, the brightly lit Jade Guardian Island, looked no different from daytime and was even more beautiful than it was during the day. Xiao Shi and Xiao Qi sat in a gazebo in the garden while Suru served them tea and snack. The two sisters were not in the mood to talk as they were both worried about Chu Li. Assassinating a prince was a matter of life and death. Xiao Shi sighed faintly. "I really don't know if he can pull through this." "It's okay." Xiao Qi shook her head. She had a strange feeling that she could feel Chu Li's existence. Even though he was thousands of miles away, she could still feel him and knew that he was still alive. With a clear chirp, a white sparrow turned into a white light and landed on her shoulder. Xiao Qi took the bamboo tube from the white sparrow's claw and opened it to take a look. She sighed. "King An is dead. The Emperor has ordered to search the world to find the murderer." "He's really dead?" Xiao Shi smiled. Xiao Qi said, "The Emperor has drawn a portrait and sent an order to the world to reward him." "He's really anxious this time." Xiao Shi scoffed. "The Emperor's portrait is of Du Feng. He used Du Feng's identity to kill King An." Xiao Qi frowned. "I'm afraid Snow Lunar Pavilion will be implicated." Xiao Shi frowned. "Why did Chu Li use this identity?" Xiao Qi slowly shook her head. Xiao Shi said, "He can't be that stupid, right? Could it be that he has a grudge against Snow Lunar Pavilion?" Chapter 2988. While they were talking, a figure flashed and Chu Li appeared in front of them. He greeted them with a smile and sat in front of them. He glanced at them and saw that they were both dressed in white, untainted by even a speck of dust. Their beautiful faces shone with a gentle luster under the light like two pieces of white jade. One of their eyes was as clear as a spring while the other was as deep as a lake. "You're full of evil tricks, you won't die so easily." Xiao Shi pursed her lips and smiled. Chu Li shook his head and laughed. Xiao Qi said, "The Emperor has announced a great reward and wants to search the world. Are you going to disguise yourself as Du Feng?" Chu Li nodded. Xiao Shi was puzzled. "Why do you have to disguise yourself as Du Feng? Wouldn't it be better if you just covered your face? Or you could just disguise yourself as a stranger." It's more interesting this way, Chu said. Shao-Chi frowned and glared at him. What about Snow Lunar Pavilion? If the Emperor takes his anger out on Snow Lunar Pavilion, it'll be a disaster. Chu laughed. Don't worry, it's not that serious. I've already revealed my identity as a disciple of Heavenly Demonic Sect. The Emperor knows what to do. He went after me but was defeated by Heavenly Demonic Sect. What if he takes his anger out on me? Shao-Chi scoffed. Shao Shi said, What are you up to this time? Chu smiled without saying a word. Shao-Chi took a deep breath and her chest heaved up and down, attracting Chu-Li's attention. Shao Shi chuckled. Are you two going to fight? Chu-Li shook his head helplessly. He did not want to say much but they wanted to know. He had to say it eventually, so he answered, Don't worry. No matter how angry the Emperor is, he won't take his anger out on Snow Lunar Pavilion. I've already directed his attention to Heavenly Demonic Sect, so he won't. There's another reason, right? Shao-Chi scoffed. Chu-Li said, Do you know that Senior Shun has a crush? Shao-Chi frowned at him and slowly nodded. Sheninghu, who was both his aunt and master, had always been depressed and unhappy. She was obviously a sad person. She did not know who Sheninghu's crush was. It seemed that no one in Snow Lunar Pavilion had mentioned this person. It seemed that they were afraid of making Sheninghu sad, so no one mentioned it. Her mind had always been focused on the regal sword scripture, so she didn't pay much attention to it. She didn't dare to mention it in front of Sheninghu to prevent her from being even sadder. Shao Shi asked, Chu-Li, you know about it? I have a guess, and it's not far from the truth, Chu-Li said. Shao Shi was surprised. Could it be the Emperor? Shao-Chi frowned and shook her head. No. Chu-Li chuckled. Why not? When His Majesty was young, he must have been very handsome and attractive to women. When he roamed the Wuling world, his martial arts were also very strong. Is it strange that Elder Shun is attracted to him? Sheninghu once said that the man she loved was dead. Chu-Li initially thought it was true, but after a few interactions, he found out the truth. Women are the best liars. Sometimes they even deceive themselves. Impossible. Shao-Chi shook her head. Shao Shi said, Little sister, it's not impossible. Chu-Li smiled and said, It's not appropriate for us to talk too much about the private affairs of our elders. Shao-Chi frowned at him and scoffed. Are you sure? Chu-Li smiled and nodded. Shao Shi chuckled. That's interesting. No wonder she's always in a daze and often looks towards the direction of the Imperial House. The next time we enter the Imperial House, I'll bring Elder Shun there and we'll know. Chu-Li smiled. Don't mess around, Shao-Chi quickly said. No one knew what would happen if they made a fuss. With Shao Ant's temper, no one knew what would happen. Chu-Li, you're really bad. Shao Shi pointed at him. Chu-Li said, But this matter won't end here. We need to hurry back to Fairy's capital. King An's imperial residence needs to be stabilized. Second lady, you should hurry back. All right. Shao Shi stretched her body, revealing her graceful curves. She smiled. Without King An, it feels like King An's imperial residence is my home. It's completely different. Chu-Li said, From now on, it will be second lady's home. Sigh, it's a little boring for him to die just like that. Shao Shi shook her head. We can torture him slowly. Chu-Li shook his head. A long night is fraught with dreams. All right, I'll leave tomorrow. You should hurry back too. Shao Shi said. Chu-Li nodded. Shao Shi glanced at the two of them with a faint smile. She shook her head and left. Shao-Chi blushed under her stare. Chu-Li chuckled. He grabbed her waist and disappeared in a flash. They returned to her bedroom. Chu-Li and Shao-Chi rode their horses and traveled along the official road. After leaving adjacent town, they traveled for more than 100 miles. In the evening, the two of them entered a big city. The city was bustling with activity and traffic was endless. The two of them led their horses to an inn. Then, they found a restaurant and found a seat by the window. They looked at the scenery outside through the window, and the noise of the city hit them in the face. The lanterns were already lit. They sat on the third floor. There were many customers on the third floor and it was very lively. Chuli took a sip of the fine wine and sighed comfortably. Now, he was crippled of his martial arts. His heavenly demonic power was completely covered by the life and death scripture. It was as if he had lost his heavenly demonic power. There was no trace of the heavenly demonic power on him. He looked like an ordinary person. Sigh, this is so frustrating. Someone put down his glass and sighed loudly. Say, Du Feng in the south and Chu Li in the north. I heard that Chu Li has been forced by the emperor to cripple his martial arts to guard the imperial mausoleum. As for Du Feng, he killed a prince and is being hunted by the emperor. The young masters of the Ji dynasty's martial arts world have all been destroyed. Lower your voice. Lower my *SS. It's the truth. Why can't I say it? Don't cause trouble. Look at the situation now. If you speak up for Du Feng, you'll be colluding with the enemy and getting yourself into trouble. Did I say something wrong? Chu Li is so lucky. His martial arts was crippled but he got a beauty. That's the public house's third lady. I heard that she's as beautiful as a fairy. It's rare in the world. Are you jealous? Which man wouldn't be jealous? His martial arts was crippled but he still stayed by her side. This kind of woman is rare. If I can meet such a beautiful woman, I'll die without regrets. Everyone is jealous. Chu Li's luck is really good. Compared to him, Du Feng is far from it. However, I admire his courage. He really dared to kill a prince. I heard that king and has a good reputation. It's only about gratitude and grudges. There's no right or wrong. That emperor is too much. As a prince, he was killed and now he's being hunted by the whole world. It's so embarrassing. I think the imperial family is getting worse with each generation. Shut up! A shout was heard. The two middle-aged men in black slammed the table and shouted. The one who spoke first was a burly young man. He had a round face, thick eyebrows and big eyes. He had a bit of an arrogant aura. Seeing that they were so rude, he rolled his eyes. Who are you and what do you want? We're protectors from the secret guardians' hall. The two middle-aged men in black said. We suspect that you're colluding with Du Feng. I don't even know Du Feng. Can't I say something fair? Whether you know Du Feng or not, we'll know after we interrogate him. Let's go. The two middle-aged men in black said coldly. We don't have to do anything, right? I'm not leaving. The burly young man roared. The secret guardian's hall is too controlling. Chapter 2989. Chu Li frowned and shook his head. Since when did the secret guardian's hall become like this? How could they arrest someone just because of a few words? They must be crazy. Did Gu Yu turn the secret guardian's hall into this after he took over? Shao Qi sneered. The two middle-aged men in black heard Shao Qi's sneer and turned to look at her with unfriendly eyes. They looked at Shao Qi's face. Shao Qi temporarily took off her white veil because she was eating, revealing her beautiful face. Coupled with her cold temperament, she was like an otherworldly fairy. She was so radiant that most people would look away after a glance at her. They did not dare to look at her any more, as if looking at her any longer would be blasphemy. The two middle-aged men in black looked at her face impudently and finally said coldly, "Lady, do you have any objections?" Shao Qi said, "The secret guardian's hall is too overbearing. I only complained a few words. Why did you have to arrest me?" The secret guardian's hall doesn't need to explain to others when we arrest people. We arrest them whenever we want. One of the middle-aged men in black said, "I think you're in cahoots with that guy, right?" Shao Qi squinted her bright eyes and said, "Oh! Then come with us." The other middle-aged man in black was burly like a bear. He stared at Xiao Qi with greedy eyes. Both of them did not look at Chu Li because he was looking at the scenery outside, and did not turn his head. Moreover, he did not have any aura on him. It was obvious that he did not practice martial arts, so he did not attract their attention. Xiao Qi said, "What if I don't go?" "That's not up to you, lady." The other thin middle-aged man in black smiled and shook his head. "There's no one in the Secret Guardians Hall that can't be invited. Lady, do you want us to invite you by force? If we do, even if you manage to escape, we'll issue a wanted notice. I'm sure you won't be able to go far." Xiao Qi said, "Has the Secret Guardians Hall always been this overbearing?" "Of course," the two of them said proudly. Chu Li turned his head and glanced at them. "When did the Secret Guardians Hall become like this? Are you new to the Secret Guardians Hall?" He had seen almost all the protectors in the Secret Guardians Hall, but he did not see them. The two of them glanced at Chu Li and rolled their eyes. "How arrogant! Are you a secret guardian too?" Chu Li took out a token and tossed it over. The two of them took a look, and their expressions changed. They recognized that this was the token of a centurion. Even if the centurion was not their direct superior, he still had the authority to mobilize their help. If they disobeyed, they would definitely suffer. "Centurion Chu?" The burly middle-aged protector frowned. "Could it be Centurion Chu?" Chu Li nodded. "I am Chu Li." "Hee, so it's Centurion Chu." The two secret guardians looked at each other and their smiles widened. Chu Li sighed and shook his head. "Looks like my title as Centurion Chu is a thing of the past." It's good that Centurion Chu understands." The middle-aged protector who was as burly as a bear tossed the badge back to Chu Li with a strange force attached to it. Xiao Qi caught the badge with her sword and placed it on the table in front of Chu Li. The two middle-aged secret guardians were even more certain that Chu Li's martial arts had been crippled. The people around them also heard their conversation and looked over in surprise. Chu Li. They widened their eyes at Chu Li. Chu Li of the North and Du Feng of the South were both legendary figures. They only talked about him but never thought they would actually meet him. After all, one of them was elusive while the other stayed in Fairy's capital most of the time. Now that he had entered the Imperial Mausoleum, they were both rare figures. Chu Li looked around and nodded with a smile. The burly middle-aged secret guardian sneered. "I heard that Centurion Chu's martial arts has been crippled. It seems like it's true." Chu Li looked at him and squinted his eyes. "Yes, my martial arts has been crippled. That's a pity." The burly middle-aged protector gave a fist salute. "We're not on the same path. As a secret guardian, you can't be without martial arts. Otherwise, wouldn't you be occupying a position and not doing anything?" Chu Li could not help but laugh. "You want me to resign from my position?" It's best that Centurion Chu knows his place." The burly middle-aged protector gave a fist salute. Xiao Qi said coldly, "How dare you?" The burly middle-aged secret guardian's face darkened and scoffed. "Third Lady Chu, right?" Xiao Qi stared at him coldly. The burly middle-aged secret guardian sneered. "This isn't the E-Public House. I'm not a protector of the E-Public House. I'm a secret guardian of the Secret Guardians Hall. I won't allow you to order me around." Chu Li could not help but laugh. "This is interesting. The secret guardians of the Secret Guardians Hall are getting stronger." Xiao Qi turned to look at him. "Do you want to teach him a lesson?" "Of course." Chu Li nodded. Xiao Qi did not hesitate to draw her sword. The sword flashed and disappeared. The burly middle-aged man held his wrist. He was shocked and angry. How dare you?" Chu Li said. "If you don't leave, then have a taste of what it feels like to have your martial arts crippled. I believe that even if I, a centurion, have lost my martial arts, it won't be a crime to cripple you, right?" "Chu Li, you're too arrogant," the thin middle-aged secret guardian shouted. Chu Li squinted his eyes at him. He realized that once his martial arts was crippled, It seemed like his reputation was no longer useful. Not only that, but he also became a target for others. Everyone wanted to step on him. After all, he used to be in the limelight. This was human nature. The people around them watched with great interest. They wanted to see how Chu would deal with it. Chu said, "Do you also want to have a taste of your martial arts crippled? You can only rely on the power of a woman. You're not the Chu from before." The thin middle-aged secret guardian said coldly, "If you dare to cripple me, don't blame the secret guardian's hall for being rude." Chu could not help but laugh. "Rude? That's great. I want to see how you're going to be rude." Then, he gave Shaoqi a look. Shaoqi's sword flashed and instantly pierced the dantian of the two men. The people around them could almost hear the sound of air being released. It was like the sound of a rubber ball being pierced. "You!" The two secret guardians widened their eyes in disbelief. Chu smiled. "Now you know how it feels to lose your martial arts, right? Get lost." Chu, just wait for the secret guardian's hall's revenge. The two men roared and turned to leave. Their footsteps were unstable and weak. Bang, 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 bang. The two men suddenly rolled down the stairs. Someone kicked their butts and they rolled down the stairs like rolling gourds. After falling to the ground, the two men had a few broken bones. The stairs were not short. Fortunately, although their martial arts were crippled, their bones were still stronger than ordinary people. Otherwise, they would have been seriously injured. Ha ha. The people laughed. They were very happy. "Chief Chu, good job." Someone gave a thumbs up and said enthusiastically, "Good job. These arrogant people should be taught a lesson." Chu gave a fist salute and smiled. Shaoqi nodded and did not say anything. Chapter 2990. She had a beautiful appearance, a beautiful heart, a young lady of the house of High Duke's public house, a master of martial arts, and an affectionate and loyal woman. All these virtues were embodied in a woman's body. A woman like her really made them admire her. However, Shaoqi's gaze was calm and unmoved. She ignored everyone's gaze and only looked at Chu. She sheathed her sword and held the wine pot with both hands. She poured Chu another cup of wine. "Don't let such despicable people ruin your mood." "Unavoidable." Chu raised his glass and took a sip. He shook his head and smiled. Then, he turned to the people around him and said, "Everyone, let's go back to our own business. However, I would like to advise this dear friend to refrain from talking about Dufeng. After all, he's in the limelight now. Don't talk too much about him." "Thank you, Chief Chu." The burly man cupped his fists and said embarrassedly, "That's my temper. I can't keep anything to myself. If I want to say something, I will say it." Chu said, "This is a critical period. The emperor is suffering from the pain of losing his son, so he's in a rage. His subordinates are in a difficult position too, so it's inevitable that they'll act impetuously. Sometimes they'll become scapegoats if they're not careful, so it's better to be more cautious." "If that's the case, then I'd rather die," the burly man said in a deep voice. Chu smiled and shook his head. "That's true. Everyone has their own way of living. I won't advise you any further. Please." He gestured with his glass and took a sip. The burly man did not refute. He raised his glass and downed it in one gulp. Then, he gestured to Shaoqi and sat down. Someone raised his voice and asked, "Chief Chu, didn't you go to the Imperial Mausoleum? Why are you here?" Chu smiled. "I've been ordered to return to Fairy's capital and leave the Imperial Mausoleum." "Ah, this is a joyous occasion, worthy of celebration." Chu waved his hand and smiled. "There's nothing to be happy about. The Imperial Mausoleum has its own merit. It's pure and quiet. The Fairy's capital has its own merit. It's prosperous and lively. However, the Imperial Mausoleum is too quiet while the Fairy's capital is too noisy." "Haha, Chief Chu's words are too touching." Someone laughed. We want to go to Fairy's capital, but we can't. Chu Li smiled. Fairy's capital is a place of trouble. It's better not to go. If I want to go to God's capital, can I get a foothold? Someone stood up and asked. Chu Li glanced at him and shook his head. If you haven't reached the Grandmaster's boundary, it'll be hard to stand firm in Fairy's capital. It's better to stay at home. Hee. That person shook his head and sat down. Chu Li gestured to the crowd and turned back to look at the window again. It was obvious that he did not want to say anything more. Everyone tactfully stopped bothering him, but they looked at him with pity. The world's top young expert was now a cripple, and he was humiliated by the people he used to order around. In such a situation, he was still able to laugh. It could be said that he had extraordinary courage. Unfortunately, no matter how much courage he had, it was useless without martial arts. The secret guardian's hall was used to being tyrannical, so they would definitely not tolerate a secret guardian being crippled. Even if he still had his centurion position, it would be useless. However, there were also people who said that when he left Fairy's capital back then, the Emperor had stripped him of his centurion position. Chu Li knew exactly what they were thinking, but he could not be bothered with them. However, he knew that the secret guardian's hall would not let the matter rest so easily. This new Deputy Commander Gu did not want him to return to Fairy's capital. Gu Yu was not a broad-minded person, so he might not think highly of Chu Li now. He only wanted to vent his anger, so he ordered the secret guardians to cause trouble and even secretly trip him up. If there were no accidents, his and Shao Qi's whereabouts would soon be known by the world. Shao Qi said, "Now that our whereabouts have been exposed, I'm afraid we won't have peaceful days." Chu Li smiled. "Your regal sword scripture has improved a lot. Don't you want to put it to good use?" "That's true." Shao Qi nodded. She realized that after going to bed with Chu Li, not only did her regal sword scripture not become crippled, but it had also become more refined. She did not know how her state of mind was, but her cultivation level had improved by leaps and bounds. It was twice as good as before. She found it hard to believe that it could improve so much. She was also a little tempted to try her sword. Chu Li said, "Go ahead and kill." "All right." Shao Qi nodded. "You have other intentions, don't you?" She was the most familiar with Chu Li, so she knew his habits. He always did things with a purpose. It was common for him to kill two birds with one stone. Chu Li said, "I'm just clearing my suspicion." The Ji dynasty's emperor, Leng Wufeng, would definitely think that Chu Li's disguise of Du Feng was heavily injured. Since Chu Li appeared unscathed, Leng Wufeng's suspicions had been dispelled. Otherwise, if Leng Wufeng suspected him, he would probably attack without any evidence. If Chu Li killed his way here, Leng Wufeng would not think about anything else and would not suspect him. The two left the big city the next day and continued to travel along the main road. In the evening, they missed their lodging, so they made a bonfire in the forest and ate their rations while they warmed themselves. It was early winter, so the forest was chilly. Chu Li had completely lost his martial arts. Although it was not particularly cold, he still wrapped himself in a fur coat to avoid arousing suspicion. On the other hand, Shao Qi was still dressed in a white tunic. The cold and heat did not affect her. The two sat side by side next to the bonfire. Shao Qi was shy and reserved, so she usually kept her distance from Chu Li. It was only when no one was around that she could not help but lean against Chu Li. When their shoulders touched, they could feel the sweetness and tenderness. Chu Li smiled. "You're finally here." Shao Qi frowned and looked around. She was annoyed that these people were not being tactful. She asked softly, "How many of them?" "4," Chu Li replied. "Grandmasters." Shao Qi nodded. "I'll go with you." "Sure." Chu Li smiled. Shao Qi saw a flash before her eyes. She disappeared from the bonfire and appeared in front of the 4 black-robed elders. The four black-robed elders stopped abruptly and looked at Chu Li and Shao-Chi hesitantly. Chu Li asked, "You're from the Secret Guardians Hall, aren't you? Why are you in such a hurry?" "We've been ordered to bring you back, Chief Chu." The four black-robed elders had met Chu Li before, so they answered in a deep voice. Chu Li shook his head. "I won't go back. Tell Gu Yu not to be so petty and use public resources for private purposes. Commander Gu has ordered to remove you from your position as a centurion. From today onward, you're no longer a member of the Secret Guardians Hall, and you're no longer a centurion." The four of them scoffed and pounced on him. Clang! Long swords were unsheathed and flashed. The four black-robed elders were flustered and kept retreating. When Shao-Chi sheathed her sword, they had already retreated more than 10 feet. Their faces were gloomy as their arms and shoulders were cut and could no longer use their martial arts. Chu Li waved his hand. "I'll let you off today because we're all from the Secret Guardians Hall. The next time you make a move, I'll cripple your martial arts." They gloomily gave a fist salute and fluttered away. Shao-Chi asked, "Should we cripple them?" "There's no need for these four. The next time they come, I'll cripple them," Chu Li replied. His original intention was to cripple the four of them. However, seeing that Shao-Chi did not do anything ruthless, he did not want to say anything to prevent her from being unhappy. In the following days they were hunted down. Shao-Chi's sword flashed like lightning and was extremely fast. With the help of Chu Li's god's limbs, it looked like Shao-Chi was protecting Chu Li, but Chu Li was actually carrying her during critical moments. Coupled with her regal sword scripture, she was truly invincible. Chapter 2991. P.S. Update complete. Her reputation spread faster than they could travel. It was as if she had spread her name before them, which was strange and unpredictable. As Shao-Chi slaughtered her way through, more than 50 martial arts masters were killed by her sword. Chu Li had offended too many people in the martial arts world, especially with Shao-Chi around. The E-Public House was extremely powerful now, suppressing too many martial arts masters to the point of suffocation. Now that they had the chance to kill Chu Li and Shao-Chi, they could not wait any longer. They either contacted others or fought one-on-one. Shao-Chi did not idle along the way and had a new opponent every day. In the beginning, Shao-Chi was still a little lenient and did not cripple them of their martial arts. However, after Chu Li gave her some advice, she realized that she could not kill them all. If she continued to be lenient, it would only make more people come out. She would not be able to deter them at all, so she decided to be ruthless. She would easily cripple their martial arts or break their limbs without mercy. She wielded a treasure sword and her sword was extremely fast. With the help of Chu Li's god's limbs, she was invincible and did not meet any opponents. For those whose inner energy was stronger than Shao-Chi's, Chu Li secretly channeled his inner energy to help her. For those whose swordsmanship was extremely high and fast, Chu Li used his god's limbs to move Shao-Chi. Their combined attack was extremely powerful. In the evening, a mile away from the southern gate of Fairy's capital, a group of strong protectors occupied one side of the road and outsiders could not get close to the parting pavilion by the road. Inside the parting pavilion, the evening breeze was gentle. Prince Bao and Prince Kong were sitting by the stone table and sipping the tea brought by the scribes. About 100 protectors surrounded the pavilion. Not even a fly could enter. They looked around and were always on guard. If King An could be slaughtered, who else could not die? The imperial family had been worried for a while, so the protectors were much tighter. The two sipped their tea and chatted. "I wonder how young Chu is doing now? It doesn't feel good to have his martial arts crippled." "I don't think so. After all, he has a beauty in his arms." "Ha ha!" Prince Bao shook his head. "It's a blessing in disguise. He married third Lady Xiao. Young Chu is really blessed. This third Miss Xiao is not a pushover either. I heard that she killed her way here and earned the title of White Sword Fairy. Prince Kong shook his head and smiled. I didn't expect Third Miss Zhao's martial arts to be so powerful. Third Lady Zhao, Prince Bao sighed, she is indeed a rare and extraordinary lady, only such an extraordinary lady is worthy of little Chu. That's true. Prince Kong said with a smile. It wasn't easy to transfer little Chu back this time, I just don't know if it's a blessing or a curse. He was worried about Chu Li's situation. Chu Li was famous in Fairy's capital, but this was all built on the foundation of Chu Li's extraordinary martial arts. Now that Chu Li's martial arts had been crippled, he was like a phoenix that had lost its feathers. He would probably be oppressed by the crowd. Even if Shao Qi's martial arts were powerful, she could not be compared to Chu Li in the past. It would be difficult for her to turn the tide. Moreover, King An's imperial residence was now without a leader. Once King An died, King An's imperial residence was destined to decline and lose its deterrence. This would allow some people with ulterior motives to attack without restraint. Chu Li's situation would not be too good. It's fine. Prince Bao shook his head. Everyone thinks that little Chu's great reputation is because of his martial arts, but they don't know that his wisdom is also amazing. No matter how amazing his wisdom is, I'm afraid he won't be able to resist assassins. Prince Kong sighed. He could predict that once Chu Li returned to King An's imperial residence, assassins would immediately surge in King An's imperial residence. Too many people wanted to take his life. Prince Bao smiled. You underestimate little Chu. Let's wait and see. If it doesn't work, we'll send some masters over. Prince Kong nodded. While the two were talking, a young scribe suddenly whispered, Your Royal Highnesses, Chief Chu has arrived. Let's go and welcome him. Prince Bao smiled. The two passed through the scribes and welcomed Chu Li and Shao Qi. Chu Li and Shao Qi returned to King An's imperial residence. Shao Shi, Song Luing, and Xuanning Yu welcomed them at the entrance. After so many days, King An had been buried. The atmosphere in the imperial residence was solemn and oppressive. Everyone was anxious as they did not know if King An's imperial residence could still hold on. They wondered if the princesses would return to their parents' homes, and if King An's imperial residence was disbanded and everyone would leave. Even if King An's imperial residence was still around, without King An, the emperor would no longer value it and its status would be far inferior. It might not even be comparable to the imperial residence of an imperial prince. Chu Li's arrival lifted their spirit. However, when they remembered that Chu Li's martial arts had been crippled and he had no abilities, their hearts sank again. As soon as Chu Li entered the imperial residence, before he could even sit down to rest, he heard a loud shout coming from outside. Chief Chu Li of King An's imperial residence, receive the imperial edict. Chu Li quickly went to the main door and gave a fist salute to the two black-clothed imperial house protectors at the bottom of the stairs. Chu Li of King An's imperial residence, receive the imperial edict. The lantern was bright and clearly illuminated the two black-clothed imperial house protectors. Tell Chu Li to enter the palace immediately. Madame Shao will follow him. The two black-clothed imperial house protectors gave a fist salute and smiled. Chief Chu, follow us into the palace. It's best if you leave immediately. The emperor is waiting for you. Chu Li slowly replied, All right. Sirs, please wait for a moment. Let me change my clothes. It's best if you hurry up. We can't let the emperor wait for too long. The two imperial house protectors nodded. Shao Qi was pacing in Chu Li's courtyard. When she heard the imperial edict outside, she became anxious. Chu Li shook his head. You don't have to say anything. Shao Qi frowned. Is the emperor suspicious of you? Chu Li smiled. I don't think so. Shao Qi sighed in relief. I'm just afraid that he might sense something. You have to be careful. She did not know how powerful an enlightened master was, but she knew that they must be unfathomable. She did not know what kind of abilities they had. Chu nodded. Just pretend that you don't know anything. Shao-Chi pursed her lips and nodded. The two of them changed into new clothes and followed the Imperial House protectors into the Imperial House. Shao-Chi followed the eunuch to the Empress, while Chu followed another eunuch to Chongwen Hall. Chongwen Hall was brightly lit. The Imperial desk was filled with memorials. Ling Wufeng, who was dressed in a bright yellow robe, was sitting on the throne. His face was pale as he read the memorials with a gloomy expression. His eyebrows were furrowed from time to time and he looked impatient. Then, he tossed the memorials aside as he was so angry that he did not want to read them anymore. After a long time, he picked up the memorial again and read it. He wrote a few words with the red brush and threw it to the side with resentment. Your Majesty, Chu is here. An old eunuch with a white beard and eyebrows entered Chongwen Hall and reported. Ling Wufeng pushed the memorials aside and looked interested. Let him in. Yes. The white-haired old eunuch quickly brought Chu into the basilica. Once Chu entered the hall, he gave a fist salute. Greetings, Your Majesty. At that moment, Ling Wufeng did not have the imposing manner of an enlightened master. Instead, he looked like an old man who did not know martial arts. However, his eyes were bright and he looked dignified. An enlightened master was deliberately restraining himself. Ling Wufeng sized Chu up and nodded in satisfaction. Indeed, your martial arts have been crippled. You're really stupid. Chu smiled without saying a word. He wished he could run away as the warning in his heart kept reminding him to stay away. However, Chu expression did not change at all. Ling Wufeng said, King An's imperial residence is now tied to you. What should you do? Have you not recovered your martial arts after such a long time? Chapter 2992. Chu shook his head. Without the Emperor's decree, I don't want to recover my martial arts. You're quite ambitious. Ling Wufeng hid his hands in his sleeves and sized him up. You're afraid that I'll order you into the inner mausoleum, aren't you? Yes. Chu nodded. I want to return to Fairy's capital. Ling Wufeng shook his head and laughed. He paced back and forth in the basilica and turned to look at Chu from time to time. Chu looked at him calmly. Ling Wufeng suddenly stopped and asked, I heard that you and King An are like fire and water? Chu replied, King An tried everything he could to get rid of me. You must be furious, right? Ling Wufeng asked, You think he's narrow-minded and intolerant, right? Chu answered, Yes. And then? Ling Wufeng asked, How did you deal with King An? I secretly crippled his martial arts. Chu answered honestly, so that he would behave himself and not harm me. Ling Wufeng frowned and scoffed. How dare you? Chu asked, Your Majesty, do you think that I should just wait for my death? That's true. You're considered a god's favored one, so you must look down on King An, right? Ling Wufeng said indifferently. Chu could not see his expression. Chu said, That's right, he really can't be assisted, he's useless. Ling Wufeng asked, Then why did you kill him? Chu was stunned. Killed King An? Ling Wufeng nodded slowly. Chu, I know that you killed King An. Chu shook his head. Your Majesty, you've wronged me. Why would I kill him? If I don't want to see him, I can just cripple him. You can't cripple him now, Ling Wufeng said. Chu smiled. Your Majesty, that's interesting. Since I can kill him, of course, I can cripple him too. But if I can't, how can I kill him? Hee, that's interesting. Ling Wufeng could not help but laugh and extended his hand. Chu felt a strong force pulling him up and into Ling Wufeng's hand. Chu did not know any martial arts, so of course he could not resist. He could only let him grab his arm and touch his wrist. A clear and cold aura instantly drilled into his body, circling around his internal organs, dantian and meridians. Everything in his body seemed to be clearly seen. Although an enlightened master did not have a divine power like the omniscient mirror, it was not difficult for Ling Wufeng to see through Ling Wufeng's body with his inner energy. Chu Li's heart tightened. He did not know if the life and death scripture could be concealed. Through the life and death scripture, he had hidden all his martial arts. Now, his entire body was empty, no different from a person who had his martial arts crippled. Ling Wufeng looked at him with a frown and shook his head. No wonder you have such a reputation. You're truly gifted and rare. He saw that Chu Li's physique was shockingly high. His meridians were wide and thick, even more so than a grandmaster's. His muscles were tight, and it was obvious that he had a body full of extraordinary strength. He could be considered to be born with extraordinary strength. Meridians existed in the body and relied more on inner energy. Ordinary people's meridians were not wide, and it was vital energy that circulated, which could not change the meridians. Inner energy, on the other hand, could expand and thicken the meridians. However, once inner energy disappeared, the wide meridians would slowly degenerate and return to the level before he learned martial arts. Since Chu Li had been crippled of his martial arts for so long, theoretically, his meridians should have recovered to the level before he learned martial arts. Now that his meridians were wider than a grandmaster's, it could only mean that he was born with such a wide meridians. This would save him a lot of effort and energy, and his cultivation would progress at an unbelievable speed. He suddenly understood why Chu Li had risen so quickly. It was obviously because of his amazing talent. Ling Wufeng looked at Chu Li and shook his head. Chu Li's aptitude was indeed enviable. Ling Wufeng could not even compare to him. Back then, it took him a lot of effort to become a grandmaster. I was lucky enough to eat a strange fruit, but I still don't know what it is. Chu Li secretly sighed in relief. It seemed like the emperor did not notice his life and death scripture. The life and death scripture was indeed mysterious and worth cultivating. Unfortunately, he still did not know the cultivation method of the life and death scripture. Oh? Ling Wufeng smiled. It was no wonder he had such aptitude. He asked, "Do you know Du Feng?" As he spoke, his body suddenly emitted an endless force that pressed down on Chu Li as if it was real. Chu Li's face instantly turned red. He dared not channel his inner energy, nor did he dare to circulate the void in his mind. He could only endure it as he felt like Ling Wufeng was going to kill him. It was true that he was important, but if Ling Wufeng suspected him, he would kill him without holding back at all. After all, his status and identity were useless in front of Ling Wufeng. Facing someone like Ling Wufeng, only powerful martial arts and becoming an enlightened master could make him hesitate. Chu Li's endless desire to become an enlightened master was born again. He decided to become an enlightened master as soon as possible so that he could teach this fellow a lesson. Ling Wufeng stared at his eyes indifferently as if he was waiting to see how Chu Li would react. Even though Chu Li cursed him in his heart and wanted to slap him, he could only frown and bear with it. He dared not use any other methods. His vision darkened. However, Ling Wufeng had no intention of stopping and only watched him indifferently. He had a feeling that there was something wrong with Chu Li. Even if he was not his son's murderer, he must be hiding something. Ling Wufeng wanted to know what he was hiding. "Of course, I know Du Feng." Chu Li gritted his teeth. Ling Wufeng asked, "What do you think of this person?" Chu Li felt an increasingly powerful force surging toward him, as if it was going to crush him into pieces. He gritted his teeth and asked, "Your Majesty, are you going to kill me?" "You killed King An, didn't you?" Ling Wufeng asked. Chu Li sneered. "I wanted to kill him, but he's your son, Your Majesty. I can only cripple him but not kill him. This time, I'm powerless, or I would have crippled him again." "You didn't kill him?" Ling Wufeng asked. He would not believe everything anyone said. He believed 70% of it and 30% of it, but he did not think that Chu Li was lying. Chu Li scoffed. I didn't. Leng Wufeng said. It doesn't matter. You're going to die anyway. Chu Li frowned. Why do you want to kill me? I'm fulfilling King An's wish. You're going to become his inner demon soon, so he has to kill you. He couldn't fulfill his wish when he was alive, so as his father, I'm helping him. Leng Wufeng said. Chu Li looked lost as if he was about to pass out. In this state, one's willpower was at its weakest, and one's mind was no longer clear. Thus, one would speak their mind. Chu Li swayed and sneered. So, there's a reason why King An is so narrow-minded. Leng Wufeng frowned. Are you saying that I'm narrow-minded? Who's King An? Even when he makes things difficult for me, I still do my best for the imperial residence. I've done my best as a subordinate, but he still wants to kill me. Chu Li's expression was blank, but his lips curled into a sneer. A royal highness like this still wants to fight for the throne. What a joke. Everyone wants to fight for the throne, Leng Wufeng said. Chapter 2993. Leng Wufeng frowned and stared at him. Chu Li sneered blankly. King An is so muddle-headed that he's nothing to worry about. Why would I kill him? I'm not that stupid to exchange my life for his. You really didn't kill him, Leng Wufeng said. Chu Li sneered without saying a word. Leng Wufeng suddenly withdrew his force. Chu Li's body relaxed, and he instantly sweated profusely, drenching his white robe in the blink of an eye. Earlier, he could not even sweat because of the force, but now that the force was gone, his sweat rushed out as if he was scooped out of water. Chu Li regained his clarity and frowned at Leng Wufeng. Leng Wufeng crossed his arms and studied him. Looks like you're very dissatisfied with me. Chu Li scoffed. I dare not. He knew he should not pretend to be too respectful because being respectful would only make him more dissatisfied, and being honest would be more believable. Hee. Leng Wufeng shook his head and could not help but laugh. Young and impetuous, just like me when I was young. What a good time. Forget it, since King An is dead, King An's imperial residence won't have an easy time in the future. Yes. Chief Zhu left in a hurry. Chu Li shook his head. The people in the imperial residence were restless, and they lost their sense of propriety. Panic was written all over their faces, and Chief Zhu was no exception. After all, King An was the sky of King An's imperial residence. They usually did not feel it, and it would be the same even if he was not in the residence. Now that he was suddenly dead, they felt like the sky had collapsed. Chu Li slowly walked into the main hall and saw two young secret guardians drinking tea in the main hall with gloomy expressions. After Chu Li entered the main hall, the two did not stand up. Instead, they sat on the armchairs and stared at him coldly. Chu Li knew what they were thinking at a glance. They were picking a fight on purpose. He took out a badge from his inner pocket and tossed it on the table. You're here to collect this, aren't you? The two looked at each other helplessly. Centurion Chu was too shrewd. He did not give them a chance to make a fuss and threw this out right away. That's right. The two fists saluted. We were ordered to retrieve the Centurion's badge. Chu Li nodded. If that's the case, please go ahead. Chief Chu, from now on, you're not allowed to act as a Centurion of the Secret Guardians Hall, a young Secret Guardian said. Otherwise, the Secret Guardians Hall won't let you off easily. Chu Li smiled. How can I not let him off lightly? Chapter 2994. Chu Li sized them up and said, You're here on Commander Gu's orders to pick a fight, right? We don't know what you mean, Chief Chu. The young Secret Guardian said, but the current Secret Guardians Hall is not the old Secret Guardians Hall. Please remember, Chief Chu, don't test the law, lest you make things difficult for us. Chu Li shook his head. If there's nothing else, please leave. Chief Chu doesn't welcome us. The other round-faced young Secret Guardian smiled. Are you feeling guilty? What's the matter? Chu Li narrowed his eyes and sized them up. He knew that they were here to pick a fight today. They were determined to disgust him, or they would not be able to explain themselves when they returned. Moreover, they were very excited that they finally found a chance to step on him. They were envious and jealous of him. Now that they had such a chance, they must step on him. You think that I'm crippled of my martial arts, so you can bully me as you wish, right? Chu Li said lightly. That's right. The round-faced young secret guardian smiled and said, Chief Chu, you should know that things are different now. You're no longer the mighty centurion Chu from before. You're just a useless person now, so don't be so arrogant and domineering anymore. Otherwise, the secret guardian's hall won't be polite. All right, let's see what you're capable of. Chu Li smiled. His figure flashed, and with two crisp sounds, the two young secret guardians were sent flying. Chu Li slapped each of them out of the hall. The two spun out of the hall and landed at the bottom of the stairs outside. They were in a sorry state. The two covered their faces in disbelief and stared at Chu Li. They knew that Chu Li's martial arts was crippled. He had an undeserved reputation, but he did not have his previous strength. Therefore, they were unscrupulous. It did not matter if they scolded Chu Li or even slapped him. He was not a secret guardian now. Even the nobles and ministers could not control the secret guardian's hall. They could be arrogant in front of Chu Li. They expected Chu Li to make a move. This was also their goal. They wanted to provoke Chu Li to make a move and then take the opportunity to teach him a lesson. Then, they would report to the commander and be rewarded. As for Chu Li, without martial arts, he was like a tiger without claws and teeth. He was not worth mentioning. Chu Li stood on the stairs and looked down at the two of them. He shook his head and said, Is this what you want? Chu Li, how dare you? The round-faced young man's face turned red as he scoffed angrily, We are secret guardians. Chu Li smiled. I'm going to beat you secret guardians. Idiots like you, even if I cripple your martial arts, I'll still take care of you all the same. Chu Li, just you wait. The secret guardians hall will not let this go. Another young secret guardian raised his voice and shouted, Our secret guardians hall is not the same as before. We will never allow anyone to invade us. Then I'll be waiting. Chu Li said faintly, Now, get out of my sight. The two secret guardians got up and turned to leave. They actually did not see clearly how Li's slap came over. His movement was amazingly fast, although he did not have internal energy, but he was still not their match. A wise man does not fight when the odds are against him. It's better to report this to the commander. Chu Li looked at their backs with a gloomy face and said in a deep voice, Chief Zhu. Head Chief. Chief Zhu hurried forward. Chu Li scoffed and said, Tell everyone, if anyone from the secret guardians hall comes, immediately close the door and don't let them in. Yes. Chief Zhu hurriedly nodded and immediately showed a troubled expression. But if they force their way in, then directly fight back. Chu Li said faintly, Yes. Chief Zhu hurriedly nodded and showed an excited expression. Then, he became slightly worried. Head Chief, I'm worried that our protectors might not be able to defeat the secret guardians hall. Then we'll have to wait and see. Chu Li said. Yes. Chief Zhu finally did not say anything else and agreed. Chu Li placed his hands behind his back and walked towards Tianshu courtyard. He was deep in thought as he walked. He had just returned to Fairy's capital and there were already people who could not wait to jump out and humiliate him. This was really Gu Yu's style, an unscrupulous villain. It seemed that as long as his martial arts did not recover, there would be trouble like this. Unfortunately, his martial arts was now crippled and could not be recovered immediately. Otherwise, it would arouse the Emperor's suspicion and he needed to do something to show the Emperor. He arrived at Tianshu courtyard. Shao Qi and Shao Shi were both in the courtyard, sitting at the stone table and playing chess. When Chu Li entered, Shao Shi glanced at him and said faintly, Why do you look so pale? What's the matter? Xiao Qi also frowned. Did you teach the secret guardians a lesson? Chu Li said, I think there will be more trouble. They're quite bold. Aren't they afraid that I'll just kill them? Xiao Shi scoffed. She held a black chess piece and gently placed it down. Chu Li shook his head. Times are different now. Don't act rashly. I'll kill them and then go to the palace to complain to the Empress. I'll say that they bullied us orphans and widows. Xiao Shi said faintly. Chu Li said, they're looking for trouble now. First, it's my grudge, and second, it's your grudge. Back then, you killed 2 secret guardians and caused the secret guardians hall's status to plummet. Now that Guyu wants to restore the secret guardians hall's prestige, he'll definitely seek revenge. This was the sin that he had done before, and now he had to pay back. This Guyu is really a piece of trash. Xiao Shi scoffed. Xiao Qi said, he's now the Secret Guardians Hall's deputy commander, right? Chu Li slowly nodded. What about the commander? Xiao Qi asked. Are you going to let him do as he pleases? Commander Fu. Chu Li smiled. The Emperor's favor isn't as good as Guyu's, so naturally, he won't dare to go against Guyu. It might seem like he's the commander, but he still has to listen to Guyu. The Secret Guardians Hall has always been the Emperor's lackey. That's troublesome. Xiao Qi frowned. Chu Li said, Guyu isn't someone to be reckoned with. Don't worry about him. He understood Guyu very well. Guyu had great ambitions but little talent. He thought that he could do something earth-shattering, but he was actually a good-for-nothing. He was arrogant, narrow-minded, and could not tolerate others going against him. He could conclude that the Secret Guardians Hall would deteriorate under Guyu's leadership. The Secret Guardians Hall was unlucky to have such a person. Although Fu Mengshan was ruthless, he knew how to do things. He was also very talented, far better than Guyu. However, Guyu refused to accept it and wanted to win against Fu Qingshan. It was obvious that this time, he was picking a fight with Chu Li, and it was also an opportunity for him to establish his authority. He took the opportunity to bully King An's imperial residence and make an example out of the rest of the imperial residences and officials. Just then, footsteps were heard. Chief Zhu said softly from outside, Head Chief, Commander Fu from the Secret Guardians Hall is outside and wants to see you. Commander Fu? Chu Li frowned and said in a deep voice, Please enter the main hall and serve tea. Yes. Chief Zhu responded and left briskly. Chu Li frowned and pondered. The omniscient mirror had already seen Fu Mengshan standing outside the imperial residence with 4 imperial residence protectors staring at him. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.